Chapter 3804. If the Shadow Moon Empire dared to launch such a large-scale invasion, they must have thought of the Azure Dragon Empire's Old Venerable. So, could this spear be targeted at that Old Venerable? Ling Han thought about the whole matter and suddenly had a feeling that this was a trap for the Meng clan's Old Venerable. Under normal circumstances, the Shadow Moon Empire could not provoke that Old Venerable, and if they directly attacked Moonlight Planet, that was the Meng clan's home ground. But now, the Shadow Moon Empire could calmly make arrangements on Rich Gold Star, whereas the Meng clan's Old Venerable was fighting in an away game. Ling Han did not know what grade of artifact that spear was, but he guessed that it might be able to kill a venerable expert. Also, although this array was not completely set up, judging from the distortion of the heaven and earth, it was definitely not simple. Whether it was or not, only a little bit was needed to prove it. Ling Han took a short stroll in the vicinity, and very soon found the transfer formation. As expected, he nodded inwardly. If that Meng clan's Old Venerable attacked, he would definitely come through the teleportation door. With his strength, of course, he was not afraid of being besieged by sect master-level almighty figures, but what if the Shadow Moon Empire activated the Great Array and delivered a fatal blow with a supreme artifact the moment he appeared? A generation's expert might be reduced to ashes just like that. However, this had nothing to do with him. Ling Han did not think of sending the news back at all. The Meng clan's Old Venerable should be the one who seized the Jin clan's throne and suppressed Brother Monkey for more than 2,000 years. He wanted Ling Han to save this old man. What a joke. If he died, he deserved it. He was lucky not to die, but when Brother Monkey returned from the Venerable Realm, the old man would still escape death. Ling Han quietly left the camp. This was the Shadow Moon Empire's invasion army's main camp. Too many experts were gathered here, and it was too dangerous for him to stay here. He had already made contact with Tang Yen and knew where he was hiding. Ling Han carefully traveled until he was far away from the camp. Only then did he fly with full speed. Swish! After flying for dozens of minutes, a cold light suddenly shot out from the ground, slashing towards Ling Han. Ling Han twisted his body and dodged this cold light. However, another cold light swiftly slashed down, interweaving into a net. Ling Han opened a curtain of starlight, blocking all the attacks. Immediately after, 7 warriors flew over from the ground on their magic artifacts, each holding a weapon in their hands. "Survivor, why haven't you surrendered yet?" shouted one of them. These were the soldiers of the Shadow Moon Empire, but they were definitely not ordinary soldiers. Instead, they were Foundation Establishment Realm and Caste Tripod Realm experts. If any faction could mobilize an army made up entirely of Foundation Establishment Realm experts, that would be unbelievably powerful. Although there were more than 1 billion Foundation Establishment cultivators in the entire universe, on average, there were tens of thousands of them on each celestial body. Ling Han glanced over and said, "Get out of the way, I don't want to kill anyone." Ha! The 7 people on the other side all laughed loudly. Wasn't it funny? A mere fish that slipped through the net actually dared to spout such arrogant words. How foolish. Another so-called young master from some great clan, right? Kill, I hate this kind of spoiled brat the most. Someone took the lead and charged out. With a slash of his sword, shwa. The sword chi was several kilometers long, intertwined with green high-level energy and densely covered with symbols. It was as if a slash of the sword could even split a tall mountain. Ling Han frowned. He didn't want to hurt anyone, but the other party's first move was a killing move, which made him very displeased. Humph! He punched out, simple and plain to the extreme. However, the Great Tao was simple. This punch shattered the sword chi, and the remaining power did not dissipate, still crushing towards that person. Peng! The punch blasted out, and that person fell from the sky. What? The remaining 6 people were all shocked. How could this spoiled brat be so powerful? The power of one punch was like this. This brat is powerful. Don't have any more contempt. Kill! A few people's bodies emitted light. That was the armor they were wearing. Once activated, the veined patterns on the armor shone, looking very awe-inspiring. Obviously, There was a huge disparity between the rich and poor of these 6 people. 2 of them didn't have armor and looked a little shabby. After activating the armor, they naturally had a lot of courage, and they launched another attack at Ling Han. The 6 of them worked together, and they were all at the cast tripod realm. Their power was very terrifying. With a thought, Ling Han immediately attacked with his baleful aura, causing the 6 of them to stagnate and fall from the sky. 5 of them directly fell to the ground. Only one of them had a strong divine sense and recovered after falling 2/3 of the distance. He used his flying artifact again and avoided the disaster of falling. So what if they were cast tripods? All 6 of them had their bones broken, and it was fortunate that they were at the cast tripod realm. Otherwise, they would have been smashed into a bloody mess. The remaining person was so frightened that he flew far away, his face still filled with fear. This was too frightening. How could there be such a terrifying person? Ling Han didn't give chase. He turned around and used his flying artifact again. Swish, he quickly disappeared into the horizon. Along the way, he was ambushed several times, but the strongest person was only a cast tripod. This naturally couldn't stop him. Half a day later, Ling Han finally arrived at a dense forest. This was the giant deer forest, and Tang Yan was hiding inside. The large black dog sent over Tang Yan's latest coordinates, and Ling Han headed in that direction. After walking for another half an hour, he arrived at a small valley. The valley was very hidden, and it was blocked by rocks. If one didn't look carefully, it wouldn't be easy to find. With Tang Yan's reminder, Ling Han naturally found the entrance very quickly and strode in. Swoosh! Just as he entered the valley, he saw a cold light slash towards him. It was extremely fast and extremely sharp. Stuff! Someone shouted, but it was already too late. Ling Han raised his fist and punched out. Ding! This light immediately shattered. It was just a Foundation Establishment cultivator. He could easily suppress it with a raise of his hand. Ha! It's actually you. Amidst the long laughter, a young man in an embroidered robe walked over. He was like the moon surrounded by stars, and there were 5 people following behind him. Ha, Meng Yangqing. Ling Han was surprised. This world was too small, and he actually bumped into Meng Yangqing here. Huh, Your Highness, you recognize Ling Han? Tang Yan also walked out. It was he who had shouted "Stop" just now. Of course I recognize him. Meng Yangqing stared at Ling Han, his eyes filled with cold killing intent. Previously he had found the ruins of the Buddha race, but in the end he was actually forced to flee by Ling Han. Not only did he not obtain the inheritance of the Buddha race, he even lost a few of his subordinates. Old Kai, take him down, he turned his head and said to one of his subordinates behind him. Yes, Your Highness. A middle-aged man immediately stood out. Originally, he had restrained his aura and was as careful as a servant, but now that his aura was released, it instantly emitted a shocking pressure. This was a caste tripod elite. In Meng Yangqing's eyes, Ling Han was naturally only at the Foundation Establishment stage. Even if he was the strongest Foundation Establishment cultivator, how could he be a match for a caste tripod? Chapter 3805. Your Highness. Tang Yan quickly stepped forward and opened his arms. Ling Han is my friend. Is there a misunderstanding between you two? Your friend. Meng Yangqing's eyes sharpened, and he couldn't help but be filled with suspicion. When Ling Han snatched his opportunity, could he have been instructed by Tang Yan? Otherwise, why would a nobody dare to go against him? Besides, other than the Tang clan, who had a strong foundation, how could they find the Buddha race's ruins? Tang Yan, how dare you go against the Tian clan? Meng Yangqing said coldly. Tang Yan was at a loss. Your Highness, what do you mean? What do I mean? Meng Yangqing sneered and waved his hand. Take them all down. So what if they were young Marquis? As long as they dared to go against the Meng clan, they would all become cannon fodder. Ling Han smiled and shook his head. Tang Yan, this has nothing to do with you. Let me do it. Tang Yan really didn't want to give way. It wasn't that he didn't believe in Ling Han's strength, but because he knew how strong Ling Han was. That was why he had to stop him. Otherwise, if they fought, Ling Han would definitely get into trouble. If the old supremacy arrived and Meng Yangqing went to complain, it would be disastrous. But Ling Han pushed him lightly, and Tang Yen could only step to the side. That old Kai stepped forward again, releasing his powerful aura as he walked. It was obvious that he wanted to use his caste tripod realm cultivation to forcefully suppress Ling Han. There were 9 stages of the immortal path, and there was a huge gap between each stage, not to mention a large stage. I'm higher than you in life and can crush you. I don't care if you are convinced or not, you can only kneel down. Of course, he miscalculated. Let alone suppressing Ling Han. As long as Ling Han took out his immortal cauldron, he could only kneel and tremble. Meng Yangqing, are you courting death? Ling Han said indifferently. Meng Yangqing sneered. Ignorant old Kai, what are you waiting for? The old shaman was a little surprised. He had clearly released the unique aura of the casting cauldron to suppress Ling Han. Why didn't the other party react at all? But with Meng Yangqing's urging, he didn't have the time to investigate further. He immediately leaped up and stretched out his hand to grab Ling Han. Bam! He had just arrived when Ling Han's foot lashed out with a kick. Lao Kai was sent flying back at an even faster speed and crashed heavily into the mountain cliff. With him as the center, the mountain cliff was densely covered with fine cracks. Then, with a loud bang, it shattered. Lao Kai's entire body had sunk into the cliff, about 2 feet deep. Then, he leaned forward and fell to the ground, leaving behind a spherical crater with a pool of blood in the center. Damn! Seeing this scene, Meng Yangqing and the other 4 revealed expressions of disbelief. This was actually a Foundation establishment cultivator impossible. Meng Yangqing stared at Ling Han for a while and revealed a cold smile. So you've stepped into the casting cauldron realm. This explained how powerful Ling Han was, but it was still shocking. It had only been a few months, but Ling Han had completed a huge leap in realm. This was inconceivable. Ling Han didn't say anything. He just hooked his finger at Meng Yangqing. This time, he wouldn't give his opponent a chance to escape. Lao Chen, Lao Yun, you two attacked together. Meng Yangqing said indifferently. Defeating Lao Kai was nothing. Lao Kai was just the weakest casting cauldron on his side. But Lao Chen and Lao Yun were both earth cauldrons. With the 2 of them working together, coupled with the advantage of a small realm, how could they not take down a mortal cauldron? Yes, Your Highness. Another 2 middle-aged men walked out. They were Meng Yangqing's true wealth. After all, Meng Yangqing himself was only a casting cauldron. His cultivation level wasn't high enough, and he didn't have enough resources. It was impossible for a life core realm expert to rely on him. The 2 of them flanked Ling Han from the left and right. Die! The 2 of them attacked at the same time. One of them brandished a flame blade, while the other used a lightning sword. High-level energy surged, and the nearby mountain rocks all trembled and collapsed. Ling Han's figure moved. Xiao, he was as fast as lightning. He kicked Lao Chen and sent him flying. Then, he raised his leg and sent Lao Yun flying as well. Bang bang. The 2 of them crashed into the pit that Lao Kai had created. The pit was enlarged by several times and was also a few feet deeper. They fell onto Lao Kai's body one after the other. The 3 of them piled up into a human pyramid. No matter how one looked at it, it was somewhat wretched. However, no one paid attention to Lao Kai and the others. They were all looking at Ling Han with shocked expressions. How is this possible? Meng Yangqing clenched his teeth. How could there be such a powerful mortal cauldron? Could it be that Ling Han was invincible in the Foundation establishment realm, and he was also invincible in the casting cauldron realm? Meng Yangqing regretted it. If he had known that Ling Han was so strong, he wouldn't have let Lao Kai and the others go up one by one. Instead, he would have formed a formation and infused all the power into his body. But now, 3 of them had lost consciousness. There were only 2 left. How could he form a formation? Fine, you win. He chose to temporarily lower his head. As long as the old ancestor attacked, he would immediately go and complain. Ling Han couldn't help but laugh. Meng Yangqing, are you a 3-year-old child? Your thinking is so childish. Do you think I'll let you go just because you said you win? No matter what, you have to explode a chrysanthemum. The large black dog interrupted. He hadn't spoken for so long that he was suffocated. Ling Han was instantly speechless. He turned around and said to the large black dog, "Just now, I had such a strong aura. Now that you've said that, you've directly dragged me down to the same level as you. How am I supposed to continue?" "Woof, you brat, stop pretending. Be careful of being struck by lightning." The large black dog had an expression that said, "I've already seen through you." Ling Han turned around and said to Meng Yangqing, Sorry. Where was I just now?" "I was talking about exploding his chrysanthemum," the large black dog continued to interrupt. "Ling Han, have you had enough?" Meng Yangqing roared. "You're a subject, I'm the ruler. You're a slave, I'm the master. If you dare touch me, you're committing treason." These words caused Tang Yan's expression to change drastically. In the eyes of the Meng family, were subjects like them slaves? "Attack with me." Meng Yangqing decided to take a gamble and said to his remaining two subordinates. The two of them naturally could only follow Meng Yangqing's path to the end. They both nodded. The three of them charged over together. With Meng Yangqing in the lead, their power was rather shocking. Meng Yangqing still had some confidence. This was different from the battle in the Buddhist ruins. He had many powerful treasures on him that he could use. This was the true foundation of a crown prince. "Go!" he shouted loudly. The space between his brows split open, and a silver sword flew out, shooting rapidly towards Ling Han. Psychokinesis artifact. In just an instant, it accelerated to more than 20 times the speed of sound. There was no sound at all, because its speed had far surpassed the speed of sound. Ling Han also had a psychokinesis artifact, so he naturally wouldn't be careless. He took out the chaotic Polaris Thunder Pagoda. Streaks of chaotic aura descended, forming a myriad of images. Peng, the silver sword arrived. Under the chaotic aura, not only was it unable to pierce through, but it was instead forcefully crushed to the ground. Chapter 3806. Meng Yangqing could not imagine why there was such a huge difference between the two treasured tools. One had to know that he was using a telekinesis tool. In a situation where the level was the same, the telekinesis tool would definitely be stronger. Otherwise, telekinesis materials would not be so expensive, and there would be no market for them. What the hell? Ling Han was a little disappointed. This was too weak. It could not even block a streak of chaotic energy. If he had known that it would only have this much power, he would have just punched it. Even the gunmetal sword chi in his stomach was not inferior to this. "Sai, I really overestimated you." He shook his head. Peng. Meng Yangqing and the other two attacked, but not a single one could break through the chaotic energy. Ling Han put away the chaotic Polaris Thunder Tower and said lightly, "Meng Yangqing, if you want to deal with me, you can do it openly. I respect you as a person, but you used dirty tricks. I looked down on you." "You knew?" Meng Yangqing was surprised. He had done this very secretly. With Ling Han's identity and status, it should be impossible for him to find out that he had done something behind the scenes. Tang Yan. He could not help but think that if Tang Yan interfered, then he should be able to follow the clues and discover his existence. Despicable, too despicable. Just wait, as long as he saw the ancestor, he would definitely kill Ling Han, and Tang Yan, and even the Tang family, would not be able to stay out of it. The heavens are watching what people do. Ling Han shook his head. "You are really hopeless. Even now, you are still thinking about how to snitch. I can't be bothered to talk nonsense with you. You should be on your way." His murderous intent was revealed. Meng Yangqing was shocked, and he shouted fiercely, "You dare!" Tang Yan was also shocked. Ling Han wanted to kill Meng Yangqing. This was really audacious. Once the news was leaked, only death awaited him, or even the execution of his entire family. "Ling Han, don't be rash," said Tang Yan hurriedly. No matter what kind of misunderstanding or hatred there was between the two sides, he and the Tang family should be able to resolve it. But if Meng Yangqing was killed by Ling Han, then Ling Han would become the Meng clan's mortal enemy. Ling Han smiled. "The Meng family isn't that great. What's there to be afraid of?" "That's right." The large black dog yelled. "Ling Han." Tang Yan still wanted to persuade him. This was really a huge matter. However, Ling Han didn't give him another chance. With a punch, Meng Yangqing was killed. This time, he no longer had a chance to escape. Tang Yen hesitated for a moment before he suddenly attacked. Of course, it wasn't to target Ling Han, but to kill all 5 of Meng Yangqing's men. "What happened today never happened," he said solemnly. "Decisive." The large black dog gestured with his paw. Ling Han nodded inwardly. He smiled and said, "You won't blame me for dragging you down, right?" Tang Yen shrugged. "What can I do?" Ling Han patted his shoulder. "If I told you that the venerable from the Meng clan was very likely killed, how would you feel?" "What?" Tang Yen was shocked. That was a venerable, a powerful existence. In the universe, there hadn't been an ancestral king for close to 10 million years. It could be said that saints were the strongest battle force, but how many saints were there in the universe? Thus, the value of a venerable was naturally very high, especially in this universe. They were absolutely invincible. If it weren't for the Meng clan's venerable, the Shadow Moon Empire's attack wouldn't have been so gentle. Moreover, if the Meng clan's venerable hadn't been heavily injured, the Shadow Moon Empire wouldn't have dared to send troops at all. Now, Ling Han said that the Meng clan's venerable might have been killed. How could he believe it? Just wait and see. I feel that the Shadow Moon Empire suddenly attacked Fujingsing to lure that Meng clan's venerable out, and then kill him, Ling Han continued, but he didn't say what he saw. Tang Yen looked at him solemnly. Are you confident? 90%. Ling Han nodded, but he still left some room for maneuver. Tang Yen had to seriously consider this possibility. With the Meng clan's current lack of successors, once the Meng clan's venerable died, the entire empire would immediately fall apart without the need for the Shadow Moon Empire to invade. The Meng clan only had one sect master-level elite, but other sect master-level forces even had 2 or 3 such existences. If that really happened, the Meng clan would be finished, and no one would pursue a small matter like Ling Han killing Meng Yangqing. I have to inform the clan immediately and make preparations, Tang Yen said seriously. Ling Han nodded. The Tang clan was a favored subject of the Meng clan empire, but it was also because of this that once the Meng clan fell from power, the Tang clan would also bear the brunt and suffer a huge blow. Tang Yen passed the news to the clan through the star web. As for what preparations the clan would make, it was beyond his reach. What do we do now? He asked Ling Han. Ling Han thought for a moment. Let's find another place to hide first. We fought just now, and it's possible that we'll attract pursuers. As for the future, it'll depend on whether that Meng clan's venerable can survive this calamity. I still don't believe that the Shadow Moon Empire has the guts to actually dare to attack a venerable. Tang Yen was still rather dumbfounded. A venerable? What kind of powerful existence is that? With a single slap, even sect master-level elites would die in droves. Ling Han smiled, but didn't say anything. Even if the old emperor is heavily injured, and his battle prowess is greatly reduced, a starving camel is still bigger than a horse. Even without his past strength, it's not difficult for him to kill his way out of the encirclement of sect master-level elites. Tang Yen was still analyzing, and the more he thought about it, the more he felt that it was impossible. Let's go. Won't we know after a few days? Ling Han pulled Tang Yen and ran. The two of them continued to hide in another place to avoid the pursuers. However, half a day later, when they were resting with their eyes closed, they suddenly felt the world shake. What was going on? They came out of their hiding place and saw light flashing in the distant sky. There was a figure that was indescribably tall. His entire body was emitting golden light, and he looked like a god. However, there was blood spurting out of his chest, and it was obvious that he was heavily injured. This person was really big, probably not much smaller than Fu Jingxing. Around him, there were many smaller people attacking him. Chapter 3808. With Ling Han's encouragement, Tang Yen pulled himself together. A clan's strength should not be built on relying on other forces, but on its own strength. The Tang clan also had a spirit transformation true lord. No matter where they were in the universe, this kind of strength was enough. In the future, I want to become a supremacy too and rule over a region, Tang Yen said with clenched fists. Ling Han was speechless. Why was this guy's ambition so small? But thinking about it again, an ancestral king only appeared once every 10 million years. This was eliminated first. Saints were also very rare. Within a star region, it was already not bad to have one in a million years. Thus, becoming a supremacy was more practical. Alright, you become a supremacy, and I become an ancestral king. Ling Han smiled. Tang Yen rolled his eyes. Why can you become an ancestral king while I can only become a supremacy? Didn't you say it yourself? Ling Han smiled. The two of them took the initiative and started to look for valuable things. When they were near the teleportation array, the two of them saw groups of soldiers passing through it. They should have gone to the Moonlight Planet. Tang Yan's expression was ugly. Ling Han nodded and was also very solemn. When war broke out, the ones who suffered the most were definitely the people at the bottom. To them, no matter which side won, it would be a catastrophe. Let's go. Ling Han put away his feelings. He could do nothing now, and the only thing he could work hard was to make himself stronger. They walked through the mines and went to the more dangerous primeval forests. They were chased by powerful demonic beasts, and they were also discovered by the patrolling Shadow Moon Empire's troops. A battle broke out. Half a month later, they all received the news. The Azure Dragon Empire was defeated and gone. Following the Shadow Moon Empire's large-scale invasion, the factions that originally belonged to the Azure Dragon Empire changed sides one by one. These were all cult masterclass factions, and even the Shadow Moon Empire didn't want to push them too far. Naturally, they had taken them in one by one. Once these experts rebelled, what was left of the Azure Dragon Empire? Meng Yonghua abdicated his position and left. The people of the Meng clan closed the imperial capital's defensive array formation and allowed the Shadow Moon Empire's army to enter, officially announcing their surrender. From then on, the Moonlight Planet was a subsidiary planet of the Shadow Moon Empire. At the same time, the Shadow Moon Empire also announced that Buddhism would be the national religion, and everyone must abide by the teachings of the Buddhist race. Ling Han couldn't help but sigh. 30,000 years ago, the Buddha race wasn't able to enter the Azure Dragon Empire, but 30,000 years later, the Buddha race was still the victor. The Buddha race did not have a specific bloodline. It was not a surname that was passed down from generation to generation. Rather, it was a kind of faith. As long as they had the faith of Buddha, they would be part of the Buddha race. How frightening! At first glance, the Shadow Moon Empire seemed to belong to the Li clan, but in reality, everyone believed in Buddhism and the Buddha clan was the true leader. Even the Li family had to act according to the teachings of the Buddhist race. Such an invasion was practically silent yet pervasive. Even if the Shadow Moon Empire was finished in the future, no matter which clan succeeded the throne, they would still be under the control of the Buddha clan. It had to be said that the Azure Dragon Empire's attack on the spread of the Buddha race was very foresight. Otherwise, after so many years, the entire Azure Dragon Empire, be it in terms of material or spirit, belonged to the Buddha race. It could be seen how terrifying the ancestral kings were. The Chang clan's four directions thearchs established the star web, and it had the most profound influence to this day. Meanwhile, the teachings of the Buddha race had spread far and wide. There were countless people in the universe who believed in Buddhism, and their influence was unimaginable. After Ling Han thought for a moment, he came back to his senses. There was no meaning in thinking about these things. The key was strength. During these days, he had just refined the 3 cauldrons of his first immortal cauldron, and his improvement could be said to be rather shocking. This was because he and Tang Yuan had found a few stalks of immortal herbs. His body had elixir poison, and it was not suitable for him to consume elixirs. However, there was no problem with immortal herbs. It was a gift from heaven and earth, and it didn't have any side effects. Of course, if he were to consume immortal herbs directly, he wouldn't be able to fully bring out the medicinal effects. It would be a huge waste. However, there was no other way. Who asked Ling Han to not consume elixirs now? If it was a waste, then so be it. Time was the most precious thing. Following the destruction of the Azure Dragon Empire, Fu Jingxing's vigilance level also lowered. Everyone was a citizen of the Shadow Moon Empire, and there was naturally no need to fight against one's own citizens. The transportation formation was open to the public again, and one could use it as long as they paid the money. Ling Han and Tang Yen were eager to return. After disguising themselves, they went to the transportation formation and paid the transportation fee. Xiao, in a surge of white light, they quickly returned to Moonlight Planet and arrived at the Imperial City. The two of them first moved separately, both wanting to find their family members. Ling Han left the city, crossed many tall mountains and great rivers, and arrived in a forest. After walking for another 100 miles, a lake greeted him. Ling Han, the Empress, Hu Niu, and the others all came out to welcome him. Ling Han also ran over with quick steps. His left hand hugged the Empress, and his right hand hugged Hu Niu, and he kissed them hard on the lips. Kissing on the lips will make you pregnant. The 7 milk babies all covered their eyes. Smelly handsome, abducting someone's beautiful big sister. Tang Yun mumbled very discontentedly as she licked her candy. What made Ling Han feel gratified was that the Empress and Hu Niu's improvement was very obvious, and they were only a hair's breadth away from breaking through to the extreme level. They settled down peacefully, staying far away from power. Changing from the Azure Dragon Empire to the Shadow Moon Empire was a huge change for those in power. Many people went from being high and mighty to ordinary overnight, but for ordinary people, there was not the slightest change. Their days would still go on as they should. Ling Han could still buy ingredients and sell alchemical pills through the Star Web. The Chang clan's status was aloof, and they were not affected in the slightest. What surprised Ling Han was that some people actually managed to turn things around. Those people from the hostage palace all ran out now, and people like Lu Xuanyu, Zhao Xiao, and the others all had forces at the level of spirit transformation true monarch or even sect master behind them. Once the Meng clan fell, they naturally became arrogant and began to look everywhere for Ling Han, wanting to kill him and take revenge for that day. Ling Han naturally did not take such a minor character to heart, but a few clowns dared to be so arrogant. Ling Han planned to kill them if he had the chance, so that they would not grumble anymore. Days passed, and Ling Han's cultivation also increased day by day. There was another piece of good news, and that was that the alchemical poison in his body was almost completely dispersed. Afterwards, he could take alchemical pills to cultivate again, allowing the increase of his cultivation level to grow wings. 3 months passed, and he could finally be considered to have cultivated to the Heaven Cauldron. The 2 celestial cauldrons had already formed 3 complete legs, and the 3rd celestial cauldron had also grown a leg. It was at this moment that a big piece of news suddenly spread out on the Star Web. The 9-Sun Holy Land, after closing its doors for 20,000 years, planned to open its doors and recruit disciples. All of a sudden, the whole galaxy was shaken. The 9-Sun Holy Land naturally had a saint before, otherwise, how could it be called a holy land? And that 9-Sun saint back then was an incomparably ferocious person. When he was young, he could be said to be invincible among his peers, and he once had the possibility of becoming an ancestral king. However, in the end, he failed at the last step and he lost to ancestral King Ling Tian. Reading on the mobile phone is more refreshing. Chapter 3809. It was said that the 9-Sun Saint and the young Ling Tian ancestral king had fought countless times. They were old enemies and rivals, and both had victories and defeats. From this, one could see how powerful the 9-Sun Saint was back then. Even the ancestral king couldn't suppress him. However, the 9-Sun Saint's cultivation technique was too fierce, leaving him with too many Dao injuries when he was young. That was why he lost to Ling Tian ancestral king on the road to becoming an emperor and could only become a sage. The 9-Sun Saint kept a low profile in his later years, but it was said that he created an extremely powerful technique and even simulated an emperor technique. Now, the 9-Sun Holy Land reopened its doors to recruit disciples. Not to mention ordinary people, even the descendants of the emperor clans were eager to try. Of course, not everyone could enter the 9-Sun Holy Land. First was the registration qualification. One only had to fulfill one of the following 3 conditions. First, the Star Web's top 10,000. Second, the innate divine body. Third, the grade of the Immortal Foundation and Immortal Cauldron must reach the gold grade. Yes, there was a hidden requirement for the registration. It was only for foundation building and cast tripod tier cultivators. Ling Han didn't have the innate divine body, but he met the first and third conditions. The problem was that he didn't want to expose the secret that he was the strongest person in the universe. Moreover, his Immortal Cauldron was obviously of a higher grade than the gold grade, but in the eyes of others, it looked like it was made of stone. How could he solve this? Ling Han looked at it. The 9-Sun Holy Land would reopen for 10 years, and there would be a screening every year. After 10 years, the mountain would close again. Fortunately, there was still a lot of time. Ling Han planned to make a trip back to Heavenly Sea Star. Since he had already entered the Cauldron Forging realm, and the Azure Dragon Empire was no longer restricting his freedom, it was time for him to search for the second trial that Saint Gu Yang had set up. Although the Turbid Heaven scripture wasn't weak, it was still inferior to a sage technique. Of course, if possible, Ling Han also wanted to cultivate the Great Emperor scripture. With regards to Ling Han's decision, the Empress and Hu Niu naturally supported it wholeheartedly. Thus, they boarded the flying shuttle and headed to Heavenly Sea Star. Ling Han contacted Lin Luo and the others. They naturally saw the notice from the 9-Sun sacred ground and decided to set off in a few days. Of course, Ling Han believed in the strength and talent of Lin Luo and the others. Therefore, after he finished the second trial site of Saint Guyang, he went to meet Lin Luo and the others. Tang Yun had also finally entered the Foundation establishment stage, and her control of the shuttle had greatly improved. Therefore, it only took a month for them to return to Heavenly Sea Star. Originally, Sky Sea Star was affiliated to the Azure Dragon Empire. Now that the Meng clan had fallen, it naturally submitted to the Shadow Moon Empire. As soon as Ling Han and the others entered a city, they saw a tall building rising from the ground. It was erected in the center of the city, but it was not yet completed. This was a Buddhist temple. It was said that in the future, there would be monks of the Buddhist race living here to spread the teachings of the Buddhist race. The invasion of the Buddha race had begun. This wasn't conquering a person on the physical level, but on the spiritual level. Without a doubt, this was even more terrifying. Ling Han ignored him. They found an inn and stayed there for the time being. He wanted to find out where the second trial site was. On Heavenly Sea Star, it was impossible to buy a map that corresponded to the exact location because the Heavenly Sea Star had long been destroyed. Ling Han could only search for the slightest clue, and then compare them. He hoped that the entrance to the second trial site was still on Heavenly Sea Star. If it was broken into pieces and flew to some corner of the universe, it would be over. Fortunately, the entrance was really on Heavenly Sea Star. After comparing the ancient map for 3 days, Ling Han finally found the place. Let's go. He took the girls, the big black dog, and perverted pig to the destination. In less than half a day's time, they arrived at their destination. However, the world had changed. So many years had passed, and the entrance to the land of inheritance had long since been buried underground. A town had been built here, and the location of the entrance that Ling Han was looking for was right under the wealthiest household in the town. If he wanted to enter the inheritance site, he would have to demolish this family first. If Ling Han was an evil tyrant, then he would directly demolish the house. However, firstly, he was not that kind of person, and secondly, he did not want to cause a huge commotion. Thus, he decided to buy this manor house that occupied a considerable amount of land. He came to visit, revealed a slight aura of a strong cultivator, and was immediately welcomed in. May I ask for your name, young hero? The head of this family was a middle-aged man in his 40s, surnamed Lu, called Lu Gaoshi. Behind him was a young man in yellow, who turned out to be at the Foundation establishment realm. One had to know that the martial art of Heavenly Sea Star could be said to have started from scratch. Now, he actually saw a Foundation establishment realm cultivator in a small town, which was naturally unusual. Ling Han thought for a moment and said, "My name is Han Lin. It turns out to be young hero Han, please come in." Lu Gaoshi was very enthusiastic. After inviting Ling Han into the living room, he introduced him to the young man in yellow next to him. "This is my son, Lu Menglin." He is a disciple of the archaic sect. Archaic sect. Ling Han glanced at the young man in yellow and nodded. However, Lu Menglin was extremely arrogant. In his opinion, he was the descendant of one of the 5 spirit transformation realm forces on Heavenly Sea Star. Naturally, he was superior and had a strong sense of superiority. He ignored Ling Han and minded his own business as he sat down. Lu Gaoxi was a little embarrassed, but his son was too strong and he couldn't do anything about it. He could only say to Ling Han, "Young hero Han, I wonder what brings you here today?" Ling Han smiled. "I want to ask the head of the Lu family to do me a favor and sell this mansion to me." "Ha!" Before Lu Gaoxi could speak, Lu Menglin sneered. He looked at Ling Han with disdain. "This is the ancestral land of the Lu family, not for sale." Of course, Lu Gaoxi didn't want to sell it, but he would never offend people like Lu Menglin. Chapter 38:10. There was a saying, "Don't show off your wealth." Ling Han gave out 200 Dao stones in one go. What did this mean? He was rich, extremely rich. Such a fat sheep, who wouldn't want to slaughter it? Lu Menglin didn't want to sell the ancestral land. He just wanted to keep Ling Han so that he could invite the sect's experts to suppress Ling Han. He really wanted to keep it for himself, but he could vaguely sense Ling Han's strength, so he didn't dare to act rashly. So, to be on the safe side, it was better to invite a few more senior brothers from the sect. It wouldn't do if he was too strong, or the other party would turn the tables. I'll invite senior brother Yang, senior brother Zhang, senior brother Li, and senior sister Tian. Normally, the 5 of them had a good relationship, and had also explored ancient sites together, developing a certain level of tacit understanding. He immediately sent out a message through the star web, asking the 4 to rush over as soon as possible. When Ling Han returned to the inn, the Empress asked, "How did it go?" Generally speaking, it went smoothly, but there might be some twists and turns. Ling Han smiled. He didn't know what Lu Menglin was planning, but the latter's change was too fast, making him feel that things weren't so simple. The Empress only nodded, not taking it to heart at all. She was such a tsundere person. Ling Han couldn't help but be moved. He picked up the Empress and strode towards the bedroom. "Niu wants to play too." Seeing this, Niu hurriedly ran in. Giving birth was such a fun thing, how could she miss it? Time passed quickly, and 3 days later, Ling Han went to take over the house. He brought the Empress, Niu, and the others with him. "Please, please." The guard was enthusiastic and polite, inviting Ling Han and the others into the living room, only to see that Lu Gaoxi and Lu Menglin were already waiting for them. Ling Han brushed his hand over the table, and a pile of Dao stones appeared. He said indifferently, 200 Dao stones are here." Lu Menglin shook his head. "I'm really sorry, someone offered a higher price. I won't sell this house." There was such a coincidence. Within 3 days, someone else took a fancy to this place. Of course, Ling Han didn't believe it. He smiled and said, "Oh, there are other buyers?" "Of course." With a loud laugh, 4 people walked out of the room. They were 3 men and 1 woman, and all of them were extremely young. "Han Lin, if you still want this mansion, you'll have to increase the price." Lu Menglin shrugged. Ling Han ignored him. He looked at Lu Gaoxi and said, "Lu family head, what do you say?" Lu Menglin couldn't help but reveal a hint of anger. Ling Han skipped him and directly asked his father. Wasn't this clearly disregarding his existence? Lu Gaoxi, on the other hand, was extremely embarrassed. He was not an overly greedy person, and from his original intention, he did not want to sell the ancestral home at all. However, since his son had agreed to it, he did not object anymore. After all, he later found out how shocking the value of 200 Dao stones was. However, he had just found out that his son had gone back on his word and tricked the other party. What could he say now? "Scram if you can't afford it," Tian Lijing, the only woman among the 4 people who had walked out, said disdainfully. Still acting? All right, I'll play with you." Ling Han extended his hand and stored all the Dao stones on the table into his spatial artifact. Then, he nodded towards the Empress and the others, indicating for them to get up and leave. "Wait!" Among the 4 of them, a red-clothed man immediately called out. His name was Yang Yuanxi. You can leave, but leave your spatial artifact behind. The man in green said. He was Li Jingping. Otherwise, leave your life behind. The blue-clothed man, Zhang Yuan, also said coldly. Ling Han laughed and said, Are you guys robbing us? Cut the crap. Don't you understand the principle of spending money to buy your life? Yang Yuanxi said. Ling Han's expression was a little strange, and he said, You won't regret it. In this world, there is no one who can make us regret it. Lu Menglin interrupted. He had been holding it in for a long time, and it was finally time for him to show off. All right, since this is your choice, I'll send you on your way, Ling Han said with a smile. No, give this to Niu. Niu hurriedly jumped out. As an extreme warmonger, she cultivated and cultivated every day in the few years after leaving the origin world. It was really too boring. So how could she miss such an interesting thing? Grandpa Dog also wants one. The large black dog stood out, his metallic underwear blindingly bright. You also want one. Ling Han looked at Lascivious Pig. Lascivious Pig shook his head repeatedly. A battle trash like him could only be beaten, bastard. One woman, one dog. Lu Menglin shook his head, appearing extremely disdainful. Dog your grandpa. The large black dog immediately charged out, activating Foot Apart World. His speed was shockingly fast, and in a flash he appeared in front of Lu Menglin, swiping out with his paw. Although the large black dog wasn't as freakish as Ling Han, he cultivated a saint technique and the great overarching heaven precious technique. His battle prowess could be said to be extremely awesome. Moreover, he was now at the Heaven Foundation building level, but Lu Menglin was only at the Mortal Foundation building level, so how huge was the difference? The paw swiped down, and Lu Menglin also fell with a sound. The large black dog stepped on Lu Menglin's head, his expression lonely. Being invincible is so lonely. That was called pretending. However, Li Yuanxi and the others all shivered. The information was wrong. Didn't they say that the other side only had one foundation building cultivator? Why did a freakish dog demon appear now? This was at the Heaven Foundation building level, and it slapped Lu Menglin down with a swipe of its paw. Its battle prowess was too fierce. Who else? The large black dog stood up like a human, his two front paws behind his back, his iron underwear flashing. Freakish dog demon, don't be too proud. Zhang Yuan walked out. He was also at the Heaven Foundation building level, so he didn't think he would lose to the large black dog. Come! The large black dog crooked his paw. Zhang Yuan charged over, his fist striking out. The fist had just shot out when he roared angrily and forcefully retracted it. Despicable, he said through gritted teeth, because the large black dog had actually lifted Lu Menglin up and used him as a shield. What? You said Grandpa Dog is despicable? The large black dog looked shocked. Can't I scold you? Zhang Yuan said angrily. The large black dog suddenly laughed loudly. Grandpa Dog is despicable, shameless, and vulgar. What can you do about it? He turned around and started shaking his butt at Zhang Yuan in a very vulgar manner. Fuck, how could there be such a shameless demonic beast? To say nothing of Zhang Yuan, even Yang Yuanxi and the others were so angry that their faces turned green. Do you think that I can't do anything to you just like this? Zhang Yuan continued to attack. He was extremely furious, and he definitely had to take down the large black dog. The large black dog was still the same, using Lu Menglin as a shield, forcing Zhang Yuan to cancel his own attack. Meanwhile, his paws continued to wave. In this way, Zhang Yuan was naturally at a complete disadvantage. His eyes became fierce, and when he attacked again, he clearly saw that Lu Menglin had been blocked, but he had no intention of stopping. He first set a small goal for himself, for example, bookmark, mobile version. Mobile version reading is more refreshing. Chapter 38:12. These figures were not real, but translucent, as if they were formed by interweaving light and shadow. As soon as they appeared, they exuded a strong and cold aura. Lu Menglin and the others were suddenly caught in a tough battle. They did not dare to retreat. If they fell into Ling Han's hands again, would they have a chance to survive? They could only kill their way forward, obtain the sword, and control the whole mystery realm. Not only could they turn the situation around, but they would also have a great opportunity. However, the battle prowess of those people was too strong. In an instant, they were bombarded until they cried out in agony. "Little Han, is this why you brought them in?" the big black dog asked. Ling Han laughed. "Am I that black-bellied?" The big black dog nodded with certainty, while the perverted pig nodded even more anxiously. It was all this bastard's fault that he had to wander around. Ling Han was speechless. He did not want to kill Lu Menglin and the others. He only brought them in for the sake of secrecy. He did not expect that they would seek death themselves. Of course, by not sealing their cultivation level, Ling Han was actually indulging them, whether intentionally or unintentionally. What the hell are these figures? Of course, the big black dog did not mind whether Ling Han was evil or not. In fact, it was happy about it. In a world where the strong were respected, what was the use of being righteous? They could not even protect themselves, so how could they protect others? Ling Han used his eye sorcery to take a closer look and said, "They should be ghosts." "Ghosts?" Second baby said. "That's right. Heavenly Star is the exit of a passage to the underworld, and it caused the death of Saint Gu Yang. Therefore, it is normal for Saint Gu Yang to capture some ghosts here," eldest baby said. Ling Han nodded. These were indeed not human bodies derived from the formation. The gloomy feeling they gave was completely different from that of normal creatures. Will people really become ghosts after they die? He was suddenly curious. If that was the case, then wouldn't the people he killed remember him in the underworld? The ancient Almighty studied it. It is said that after living beings die, their souls enter the nether world. This is a place that is completely different from our world. In theory, there should be no possibility of communication between the two worlds. Only at the moment of death can the souls pass through the barrier between the two worlds. But maybe the two worlds have existed for too long, causing some places to start merging, second baby said seriously. Listening to a milk baby say such things with a straight face always made one feel like laughing for some reason. Ling Han tried to control himself. He looked at Lu Menglin's group of 5 who were fighting hard. The heavenly starry star is the point where the two worlds merged. When the underworld opened, countless ghosts poured in and caused a catastrophe. That's right. The 7 milk babies nodded in unison. While they were talking, Lu Menglin and the other 4 could no longer hold on. They all wanted to kill their way back, but there was a terrifying gravity on this path, making it difficult for them to advance. More importantly, they had steeled their hearts to kill their way to the other side, and they had really killed a distance away. Now, they still wanted to kill their way back. Difficult. Ling Han and the others had no intention of helping them. The 5 of them had brought this upon themselves. In a few moments, the 5 of them were killed. A strange scene appeared. As soon as the 5 of them died, the ghosts actually killed each other, and the battle was extremely fierce. But in the end, the 5 strongest ghosts won. They rushed into the bodies of Lu Menglin and the other 4, and then they actually stood up shakily. If it was not for some kind of force restraining them, they would most likely have either charged toward Ling Han to kill him, or run away without a trace. The destructive energy could restrain ghosts? Ling Han's heart skipped a beat, but he did not hesitate to charge forward. He threw a punch, and Lu Menglin and the other 4 did not dare to take it head-on. They hurriedly retreated. Ling Han used so close, yet worlds apart, and caught up to Zhang Yuan. He threw a punch at him. Zhang Yuan had no choice but to parry it, and he also threw a punch at Ling Han. Bam! The 2 fists collided, and their bodies trembled at the same time. In terms of strength, they were actually evenly matched, but the destructive energy spread through Zhang Yuan's fist, instantly burning his entire body. The speed was so fast that it seemed as if his body was covered in wax. In just an instant, Zhang Yuan was burned to ashes, and the ghost that had entered his body also ran out in terror. However, it was useless. It had already been ignited, and it kept howling at the level of divine sense, appearing to be in extreme pain. After a while, it was also burned to ashes. The Empress and the others all activated the ancient Yang Heaven scripture. Shio shio shio. They absorbed the streaks of azure light and turned them into the most fundamental power, increasing their cultivation and strengthening their celestial foundation. Grandpa Dog is about to break through. After a short while, the big black dog shouted. His aura was very strong and unstable. The Empress and Hunyo also reached the peak stage of the Heaven Foundation level and began to break through to the pinnacle level. Ling Han dispersed the azure light. The cultivation of the Empress and the others was much lower now. He wanted to raise their cultivation level first. For the Empress and the big black dog, breaking through to the pinnacle level was naturally not difficult. In less than half a day, they broke through one after another. Ling Han summoned the azure light again and told them to continue cultivating. If they could reach the cauldron forging tier in one go, that would be great. However, although the azure light was very nourishing, it was like alchemical pills and had a saturation level. After another half a day, the Empress and the others could no longer increase their cultivation level by absorbing the azure light. Only then did Ling Han sit down cross-legged and use the cauldron forging chapter of the ancient Yang Heaven scripture to cultivate his mystical power again. Streaks of azure light were absorbed by him, helping to make his mystical power pure. Otherwise, his cultivation level would definitely regress slightly. When all the azure light disappeared, Ling Han's cultivation level was also close to the peak stage of the Heaven Cauldron forging tier, and he was only a hair's breadth away from completing his third leg. Ling Han was very satisfied. Although his cultivation level had not improved much, his mystical power had become much purer, and his battle prowess had naturally improved greatly. Come, it's time to leave. The large black dog was not satisfied yet. There's only so little benefit in a mystery realm. This is just a transfer station. If you really want to reap great benefits, you have to wait until the last mystery realm, the large black dog said. He was still in the examination stage of St. Gu Yang, so it was already good enough that he could obtain a nourishing azure light and a treasured sword in addition to cultivation techniques. Sigh, what a stingy saint, the large black dog said. Yeah, too stingy, Hunyo agreed. Let's go. They exited the mystery realm. Ling Han had already erased the memories of all the members of the Lu family, so he directly headed to the imperial capital. Ling Han first went to see Xianyuan Dinghua. This guy had finally advanced to the foundation building tier, but due to his limited talent, he might not be able to break through to the cauldron forging tier in the next 100 or 200 years. Chapter 38:14. Every time he used the teleportation formation, there would be a certain burden on his body. The further the teleportation distance, the greater the burden. When accumulated, it would cause great damage. There was someone who used the teleportation formation 17 times in a row, and when he came out for the last time, his whole body was torn to pieces by the power of space. Thus, after using the teleportation formation a few times in a row, Ling Han decided to rest and recover completely before setting out again. After staying here for a few days, they set out again. Just like that, they walked and stopped, and after a month they finally arrived at the Nine-Sun Planet. The Nine-Sun Planet was the planet where the Nine-Sun Holy Land was located. It wasn't called this in the past, but the Nine-Sun Saint was too famous. Back then, he had the title of the strongest elite in the universe, and only when ancestral King Ling Tian became a monarch did he settle for second place. Calculating the time, this was almost 100 million years ago. There were no immortal beings in this world, and even the strongest ancestral kings could only live for tens of millions of years. Saints only had a lifespan of 1,000,000 years, and this was under the circumstances that everything was taken into account. In reality, no one could live that long unless they obtained a saintly medicine that could prolong their life. Ling Han was very rueful. Even the strongest ancestral king would reach the end of his lifespan, and a lifetime of invincibility would eventually come to an end. From this point of view, wasn't it better to live in the origin world? He couldn't help but laugh. Unless the divine stone was not damaged, the origin world could exist forever, and once it was destroyed, all the beings inside would die. In this way, even if they could live for a few more epochs, so what? Whether they lived or died would be up to heaven's will. Fate had to be in one's own hands. Ling Han's will became firm again, and he no longer worried about personal gains and losses. The Empress, Hunyeo, the large black dog, and the others had all fought their way into the top 10,000 of the star web. Princess Bai Xiao had an innate divine physique, so it was equivalent to them directly obtaining the right to register. They only had to confirm it through the star web when the time came. Ling Han couldn't do it. He had to think of another way to obtain the right to register. The simplest way was to fight and make a name for himself. Then, the Nine Sun Holy Land would naturally personally deliver the right to register. He did it without delay. Ling Han arrogantly set up a stage and pulled up a banner with the words, "Number 1 Cauldron Forging Expert," written on it. Some people were disdainful, thinking that Ling Han was just playing to the gallery and deliberately attracting people's attention. However, some people were unhappy and challenged him. Naturally, they suffered crushing defeats. After a few days, Ling Han did not gain a single victory. Naturally, his reputation was tarnished, and he also attracted some people with real strength. However, no matter who challenged him, it was useless. Ling Han easily emerged victorious, displaying an undefeatable stance. This reputation naturally spread more and more, and it also caused a heated discussion on the star web. Some people even called for the experts ranked in the top 10,000 to suppress Ling Han. How could they let an unknown kid be so arrogant? Very soon, someone responded and wanted to meet Ling Han. This person was called Lu Jianyun, and he was ranked in the 9,000s on the star web. He was extremely amazing, and he was definitely one of the top experts on any celestial body. He was a true genius. Brother Lu, that guy's good days are coming to an end. Where did Ling Han come from? I think it's the Moonlight Planet. What? A celestial body that not even saints have come from? Yes, it's this kind of country bumpkin from a small place. He thinks he's invincible just because he defeated a few nobodies. The truly capable people are all on the star web. When and where is the battle? I want to go and join in the fun. Let's go together. Many people expressed that they wanted to watch the battle, and Lu Jianyun was very generous. He said that he would give everyone time. He would only challenge in 3 days, so that everyone would have enough time to rush over. Of course, this was only for those who had already come to the Nine Sun Planet. It couldn't be helped for those who were still in some corner of the universe. But it didn't matter. There would definitely be people who would broadcast it on the star web. Of course, Ling Han also heard about it. He couldn't help but smile and didn't take it to heart. 3 days passed quickly. Ling Han still went outside to set up the stage after his cultivation. When it was almost noon, many rays of light appeared in the sky. If one looked carefully, they would see that many people were flying on artifacts. Swish, swish, swish. One after another, figures landed. Then they saw stars surrounding the moon. A young man walked out with large strides. He was tall and slender. His hair was jet black and thick. He had a kind of divine light of Tao presence, which was very pleasing to the eyes. Lu Jianyun is here. Ling Han only took a glance and retracted his gaze. He didn't care who it was. Even if it was Shi or Myriad Daos, he wasn't afraid to fight. That's right, are those 3 ferocious men here? You are Ling Han? The young man in the lead had already jumped onto the stage and looked at Ling Han with disdain. Ling Han sneered. If you aren't stupid, you wouldn't ask such a low-class question. The young man's expression changed. Before he could say anything, there was already a wave of scolding. So arrogant. Who does he think he is? How dare he talk to Brother Lu like this? Brother Lu is ranked 9,632 in the Star Webcast Tripod realm. You're wrong. That was yesterday's ranking. Today, he's already at 9,629. Hey, he improved again. Brother Lu's future is really boundless. He's already in the top 10,000 and can still maintain a steady increase in his ranking. He's indeed a super genius. After entering the Nine Sun Sacred Ground, Brother Lu's ranking will definitely increase greatly. Lu Jianyun turned his anger into pride. Did you hear that? What kind of existence was he? What are you standing there for? What are you waiting for? Ling Han shook his head. What? Are you here to be a mascot? Lu Jianyun was instantly enraged. He roared and charged at Ling Han. He couldn't bear it anymore. He didn't care if he was elegant or pretentious. Right now, he just wanted to teach Ling Han a lesson. To be able to rank in the top 10,000 of the star web, Lu Jianyun's strength was indeed extraordinary. Chapter 38:16. An old man walked out from the Holy Land, looking to be in his 60s. His strength was very strong, and he was at least in the true self tier. Just by standing there, he was like a sun, attracting everyone's attention. The test is very simple. You will first be divided into groups of 10, and then sent to the barbaric berserk star. Fierce beasts run amok there, and it's an incredibly savage land. You have 10 days to hunt fierce beasts, and killing different fierce beasts will give you different points. The points will be recorded in the group, and after 10 days, the remaining people in the group will split the points equally. The top 100 can become disciples of the Holy Land. Let me explain in detail. Before you enter the barbaric berserk star, each person will receive a special connecting device. This is made by the Holy Land, and is limited to the 7 great stars that the Holy Land's forces cover. On the barbaric berserk star, you cannot harm your competitors, but you can plunder and destroy your opponent's connecting devices. As long as you lose the connecting device, it means that you have failed this selection. In addition, a team must retain at least 3 members, or else no matter how high your points are, you will all be eliminated. Also, the connecting device can only contact team members at the moment and ask for help from the Holy Land. If you encounter fierce beasts that are too powerful and will endanger your life, you can ask for help, but once you ask for help, you will be eliminated. Alright, now we will divide you into groups. The grouping was very simple. It was not by drawing lots, but by the order of obtaining the pass. In this way, Ling Han would have to be separated from the Empress and the others, and the Empress, Hu Niu, the large black dog, and the milk babies were quite likely to be in the same group, if it was a coincidence. Be careful. If you encounter danger, there is no harm in asking for help. Safety first, Ling Han said. N. The Empress and Hu Niu both nodded. However, cauldron forging and foundation building were selected separately. Though they all entered the barbaric berserk star, they definitely would not put foundation building and cauldron forging in the same group, so even if Ling Han and the Empress had obtained the pass together, there was nothing they could do. The crowd began to divide into groups, and very soon, groups of 10 people were formed. The foundation establishment cultivators and the crucible forging cultivators entered different transmission arrays. With a surge of light, they immediately disappeared. The teleportation was done in small teams, and the location of each teleportation was random. However, the foundation establishment cultivators were all in the southern hemisphere, while the cauldron forging cultivators were in the northern hemisphere. There was a formation separating them, so it was impossible for them to communicate with each other. Ling Han was at the very back of the line and waited for an hour before it was his turn. He stepped into the teleportation formation with his 9 teammates. In a flash of light, they had already arrived on another planet. Savage Storm Star was a celestial body without a sea. Its surface was covered with incomparably dense primitive jungles. The tall trees were thousands of feet tall, even taller than some mountains. The group of 10 appeared under a large tree. The ground was covered in a thick layer of fallen leaves. They were soft, and even if they fell, they would not be injured. Let's choose a leader first, a blue-robed youth said. My name is Luo Shan, and I have the bright moon divine body. I hope that I can lead everyone into the top 100. Hee, a mere 5th-rate divine body actually dares to be so confident, a green-robed man said disdainfully. He pointed at himself with his thumb. Ma Gang, Heaven Tripod Realm, Golden Immortal Cauldron. All of you better stand to the side. Another person stood out. Huang Lingyun, Star Web ranked 8,532. What innate divine body? What golden immortal cauldron? These were all fake. Martial art depended on one's strength, and the Star Web rank was the best proof. Once Huang Lingyun said that, the 2 people from before immediately shut their mouths obediently. Hee, what a coincidence. A long-haired youth shook his head. Mu Long, Star Web rank 8,366. Swoosh. Huang Lingyun immediately looked over and revealed a smile. Then I'll have to ask for some advice. Come. Mu Long naturally would not be afraid. The two of them leaped out and started a battle. Of course, they had no qualms about starting a battle here. However, what was surprising was that those trees were very, very sturdy. Furthermore, their leaves had a very powerful absorption effect. Hence, even though a large portion of the nearby trees had fallen, the destructive power was still contained within this region. Otherwise, the intense battle between two tripod forging experts would raze the nearby mountains to the ground. Ling Han yawned and did not look at the battle between Huang Lingyun and Mu Long. After all, they weren't the strongest in the team and they weren't even in the top 3. He looked at one person. That was a man with an astonishingly tall and sturdy build. Even when he sat there, he was not much shorter than an ordinary person who was standing. He was like a small mountain, and from his body, Ling Han could see an incredibly vigorous power. His whole person was like a furnace that could incinerate the heavens and destroy the earth. Apart from this sturdy man, there was also a youth in purple robes. He had a slender figure and an elegant demeanor. He had an aura of otherworldly elegance. This person shouldn't be weak, but the rest were average. He was thinking about the rules that the 9 Sun Sacred Ground had come up with. 10 people to a group, and the points had to be distributed equally. If there were a few more burdens, wouldn't the entire team be dragged down? However, there was another rule. One could also kick out one's own people as long as the opponent's connector was destroyed. In that case, could it be lowered to the lowest number of 3 people? Unless there was a guarantee that all 3 people's connectors would not be lost, even if 2 of them were invincible, they would still be eliminated in the end. Hence, this rule was a little interesting. While he was thinking, Huang Lingyun and Mu Long's battle had also stopped. After all, this was just a fight for the position of team leader and the right to speak. There was no need to reveal their trump cards. Moreover, more importantly, this was to understand the strength of each person in the team, who needed to be roped in and who needed to be abandoned so that they wouldn't drag the team down. Huang Lingyun and Mu Long acknowledged each other's strength after a short battle. The winner was Mu Long. I'll be the team leader. Does anyone have any objections? Mu Long said lightly. He walked in front of Ma Gang and asked, Do you submit? Ma Gang's expression changed. In the end, he lowered his head and said, I submit. He had seen Huang Lingyun and Mu Long's battle strength was indeed above his. He had no choice but to submit. Do you submit? Mu Long asked Luo Shan. I submit. Mu Long revealed a satisfied smile and turned to the third person. Do you submit? I submit. Do you submit? I submit. Soon, 5 people in the team had already agreed. Including Huang Lingyun, who had lost, only Ling Han, the burly man, and the purple-robed young man had not expressed their opinions. Do you submit? Mu Long walked in front of the burly man. I submit. The burly man raised his head. His hair was messy, and his face was full of stubble. He was also dressed in animal skin, and he looked like a savage. Mu Long was stunned. Heh, then I'll make you submit. He reached out to grab the burly man. Chapter 38:17. Mu Long struck out with his palm. He was ranked around 8,000 on the star web, and his strength could be said to be extremely horrifying. Even though he didn't use his full strength in this palm strike, the momentum was still earth-shattering. The burly man moved. He stood up as if a small hill had suddenly turned into a huge mountain. Then he slapped Mu Long. There was no brilliance, and this palm was extremely simple. But as soon as the palm hit, pang, Mu Long was sent flying like a cannonball. He crashed heavily into a large tree, directly penetrating a human-shaped hole. Then he broke through the tree and continued to crash backwards. Mu Long finally stopped after breaking 11 trees in one go. He fell to the ground, unable to get up. Hiss, it was just a palm strike, and an expert ranked over 8,000 on the star web was sent flying. It was too shocking. This was something that no one had expected. They all looked at this burly man in shock. It turned out that this was a great hidden expert. Even the purple-robed young man put away his indifferent expression and began to carefully size up the burly man. You. The burly man pointed at Huang Lingyun. Are you convinced? Huang Lingyun couldn't help but feel extremely depressed. The one who had been strutting around was Mu Long, so why did he want to settle the score with her? However, the other party had sent Mu Long flying with a single slap. Mu Long had indeed been careless, but this burly man was definitely terrifyingly strong and could be ranked in the top 8,000 of the star web. After entering the top 10,000, generally speaking, every 1,000 ranks was a crushing difference. But if one entered the top 1,000, there would be a huge gap every 100 ranks. He lowered his head and didn't say anything. He still had to save face. However, the burly man strode over, his huge figure casting a long shadow. Are you convinced? From the looks of it, a slap was about to come down. Huang Lingyun could only open her mouth and say, I submit. The burly man grinned and said to everyone, My name is Wu Qiuan, 19 years old this year. Puff many people directly spurted out their saliva. This burly, bearded man was actually only 19 years old. Which mountain did this savage come from? However, the people who were laughing immediately retracted their contemptuous expressions. This Wu Qiuan was too powerful. With such strength, who could look down on him? Little brother Wu, let me experience it. The purple-robed youth finally stood up. He smiled gently as though he was harmless. My name is Yuan Tian. I haven't participated in the Star Web ranking battle, so I don't have any ranking. However, I should have cultivated a few more immortal cauldrons than all of you. When everyone heard this, they all sneered. What kind of joke was this? Did he think that they were all human cauldrons or earth cauldrons? He even cultivated a few more immortal cauldrons. How could he not be laughed to death? Yuan Tian didn't bother to explain. He took out his immortal cauldrons one by one and hung them above his head. 1 gulp, 2 gulps, 3 gulps, 4 gulps. Fuck, everyone was shocked. For cauldrons, it was actually 4 cauldrons. Everyone knew that the peak of the cauldron forging realm was the Heaven Cauldron realm. In other words, cultivating 3 cauldrons was enough. Cultivating 4 cauldrons was breaking through the limit. Who can break the limit? A genius among geniuses. Hiss, this Yuan Tian was too shocking. He actually cultivated 4 cauldrons. Even if he were to be placed on the web of stars, he would at least be ranked in the top 1,000, or even in the top 700. Who would have thought that such a monster would appear among them? Wu Qiuan scratched his head with his thick and long fingers and said with some confusion, Hey, you also have 4 immortal cauldrons. He was forced back dozens of meters, but after a shake of his body, he charged forward again as if nothing had happened. Yuan Tian, on the other hand, wanted to vomit blood. His physique was far from being as strong as Wu Qiuan's, and fighting like this was too disadvantageous for him. With a solemn expression, he let out a long howl and green swords appeared around him. Wu Qiuan arrived. Shio shio shio. Those azure swords immediately slashed at him. The swords were too sharp, and they left behind gashes on his naked body. Although they weren't deep, they still managed to injure this bull-like fellow. Kill! However, the blood only made Wu Qiuan even more berserk. His eyes were scarlet red, and his attacks became even sharper, forcing Yuan Tian to fight with his life on the line. Otherwise, if he continued to hold back, he would undoubtedly die. Ling Han shook his head and strode forward. He had to mediate. Chapter 38:18. Ling Han strode forward, heading towards the battlefield. Hey, do you want to die? That's not a battle you can interfere in. 2 members immediately warned him loudly, but there were also some who watched coldly from the sidelines. In any case, it was fine as long as the number of people in a team was no less than 3, and they could just eliminate some trash. In this way, the remaining people would have stronger battle prowess, and their average score would naturally be higher. Hong, Wu Qiuan punched out, the tip of his fist tearing through the air, forming a large number of vortexes, turning into the eye of a storm, the scene like the end of the world. This guy was incredible, walking the path of a powerful fleshly body. In the future, perhaps he would become a great existence that could dazzle the universe. Shwa, shwa, shwa. The green blade unceasingly slashed at his body, flashing with blood, but Wu Qiuan only acted as if he did not know, fiercely punching out, simple, direct, and domineering. Peng, The punch landed, and Yuan Tian was instantly sent flying, but his counterattack was also incomparably fierce, leaving behind many wounds on Wu Qiyuan's body, causing blood to gush out. At this stage of the battle, it was truly the case of blades turning red, and true anger was being unleashed. Wu Qiyuan roared loudly, and like a violent bear, he charged towards Yuan Tian, his whole body wrapped in gray energy, filled with terrifying destructive power. One side was going all out, so the other naturally could not hold back, or else they would either die in battle or be seriously injured. Moreover, Yuan Tian was also holding back a stomach full of anger, so why should he retreat? Who is afraid of who? He also roared loudly, a series of golden-veined patterns appearing all over his body, and the four cauldrons also emitted endless immortal qi, transforming into an immortal sword, which slashed towards Wu Qiyuan. Not good. Everyone cried out in their hearts. If they clashed, the two of them would most likely be doomed. They had not even begun the hunt, but had already lost two of their generals because of internal strife. How were they going to compete with the other teams? Just at this time, Ling Han finally charged into the battlefield. His figure flashed, and he stopped between Wu Qiyuan and Yuan Tian. In this way, both of their attacks were directed towards him. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. Everyone could clearly see the strength of Yuan Tian and Wu Qiyuan. Yet, Ling Han had forcibly charged in between the two of them. This was equivalent to suffering the joint attack of the two of them. How could he possibly withstand it? It was over. He was definitely going to die. The two experts' attack speed was extremely fast. Even if they discovered that their opponent had changed to Ling Han, it was impossible for them to stop. Firstly, it would be too late. Secondly, if he retracted his attack but the other party didn't, the attack would still pass through Ling Han and hit him. That was courting death. Therefore, they could only brace themselves and continue to attack. Ling Han's attack didn't seem slow, but time seemed to slow down infinitely. One could clearly see that his left hand had grabbed Yuan Tian's wrist, and his right hand had grabbed Wu Yuan. Then the scene froze. What's going on? Everyone was petrified. The earth-shattering attack of the two geniuses was stopped just like that. Damn, everyone stared at Ling Han as if they were looking at a monster. All of them felt their scalps go numb and their hearts contract to the extreme. What kind of strength was this? To be able to so casually dissolve the crazy attack of Wu Yuan and Yuan Tian. In other words, not only was Ling Han's strength above Wu Yuan and Yuan Tian's combined attack, it was also a level higher. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to be so relaxed. It's just a competition for the position of leader. There's no need to be so impulsive. Ling Han opened his mouth and said indifferently. On the other side, Wu Yuan and Yuan Tian were also petrified. They knew better than anyone else. They felt that after being grabbed by Ling Han like that, they couldn't use the strength in their bodies at all. No, this description wasn't right. It should be said that there seemed to be a supreme god hidden within Ling Han's body. They could only bow down and worship him, and couldn't even muster the heart to fight him. For geniuses like them, this feeling was really terrible. The two of them hurriedly calmed down and finally mustered some courage. But they still felt that their strength was severely suppressed. They couldn't help but be shocked. Even if their strength was equal, how much strength could they use against Ling Han? This was too terrifying. This guy who didn't make a sound was the most amazing person. This was obviously because of the immortal cauldron in Ling Han's body. Its level far surpassed that of a gold immortal cauldron. In a situation where their realms were equal, anyone would be affected. I'm not fighting anymore. Ling Han smiled and looked at Yuan Tian. Yuan Tian was incomparably gloomy. He wanted to show off, but in the end he met someone who could do it even better. Now, the limelight was all snatched by Ling Han. How could he not be gloomy? But Ling Han was too strong. What could he say? I'm not fighting anymore, he said honestly. Ling Han nodded and looked at Wu Yuan. What about you? Wu Yuan scratched his head. You're stronger than me. I'll listen to you. Ling Han smiled and let go of his hands. We're all in the same group. At least for these 10 days, we'll work together. Yes. That's what we should do, Huang Lingyun hurriedly said. In the future, we'll listen to this captain. He still didn't know who Ling Han was, but he had to hold on to this thick thigh. He was too strong. He was probably in the top 700 of the star web, or maybe even higher. Ling Han shook his head. I'm not interested in being a captain. You should do it. He pointed at Yuan Tian. Ah. Yuan Tian pointed at himself, a little surprised. Ling Han actually didn't want to be a captain. He really had just come out to stop the fight. He indeed wanted to be the team leader, but that was only because of his introverted personality. He wanted to show off his strength, show off a little, and be admired by others. But now, this position had been given to him by Ling Han, and this had instantly caused him to lose the meaning and joy of showing off. I don't want to be a captain. He shook his head. Then you do it. Ling Han looked at Wu Yuan again. I'm not as strong as you. I can't do it. Wu Yuan also shook his head. Ling Han couldn't be bothered to be a captain, so he looked at Mu Long and said, Then you do it. Mu Long also wanted to refuse. There were 3 gods in the group, and he, as a captain, couldn't command them at all. What was the point of being a captain? But just as he opened his mouth, he saw Ling Han's eyes turn sharp. He immediately stopped, not daring to continue. All right, you're the captain, Ling Han said. Let's begin the hunt. Hearing him mention business, everyone shivered. No matter who was the captain, they had to hurry up and hunt the beasts. Otherwise, without enough points, they would all be eliminated. Let's go. Mu Long braced himself and said. He waved his hand and led the way. The hunting group began to move, looking for traces of the beasts before launching their attacks. In this regard, Wu Yuan played a huge role. Chapter 38:20. Although the giant frog was large in size, its movements were extremely nimble. It flapped and leaped, sometimes standing up on its hind legs, its 2 front legs swiping at Ling Han as if it was a palm technique master. Sometimes, it lay down on all 4s, opening its mouth and sticking out its long tongue. It was like a ferocious spear, its penetrative power extremely terrifying, and even the curtain of starlight could be broken through. However, this kind of attack was also very taxing on the giant frog. It couldn't continuously use it, so a sudden attack was even more threatening. Of course, Ling Han's attack power was not inferior to that of the toad. The heavenly flames were of an extremely high level, and as he punched out, the giant toad became extremely fearful and had to dodge. Otherwise, a single hit would leave a charred hole in its body. Both sides were wary of each other, and the battle immediately became entangled. Let's go! Wu Qiyuan and Yuan Tian exchanged a glance, then leapt into the fray. However, no one else made a move. It wasn't that they didn't want to make a move. It was just that they didn't have the qualifications to do so. How could they, who were merely at the Heaven Cauldron and Earth Cauldron realm, withstand the attacks of at least 5 Cauldron realm experts? Actually, if Ling Han went all out, it wasn't that he couldn't defeat this giant frog, but it wasn't necessary. This wasn't just a test for him, so why did he have to do all the work? Besides, the fewer people who know about the ultimate move, the better. Why would he use it if it wasn't necessary? With the addition of Wu Qiyuan and the other 2, the giant frog immediately fell into a disadvantageous position. With Ling Han as a distraction, the combat power of the 4 cauldrons could be fully unleashed. How could such destructive power be belittled? Croak! The giant frog roared loudly, and the sound waves transformed into waves. This was an AoE attack, the perfect weapon to deal with group attacks. Ling Han was naturally fearless, while Wu Qiyuan and Yuan Tian each had their own ways to neutralize the sound wave attack. Both of them took out their mystic instruments and blocked the sound wave attack. Next, they launched a powerful counterattack. After dozens of moves, the giant frog was already at its wit's end. It was already injured, and now that it was being attacked by 3 people, it couldn't hold on any longer. The giant frog began to fight with everything it had. Its long tongue spat out randomly like a divine spear. It could be said to be unstoppable, and not even the barrier of starlight could stop it. It was extremely powerful. Ling Han and the other 2 did not dare to face them head-on. Instead, they kept moving around. This kind of eruption would definitely not last for long. The giant frog took the opportunity to escape, but Ling Han and the other two caught up, forcing it to continue fighting. After another 10 minutes or so, the giant frog finally ran out of energy and was killed by Ling Han and the other two. Phew, it's finally done. Yuan Tian panted heavily. He also had some injuries on his body, which were left from the fierce battle, but they were all light injuries. Wu Qiuan wasn't much better off. His fighting style was rougher than Yuan Tian's, so he suffered heavier injuries. However, his physique was strong, so these injuries didn't matter. Only Ling Han was an exception. In fact, he could deal with that giant frog by himself, so he naturally wouldn't be injured. He seemed to be extremely relaxed, and didn't look like he had just fought a great battle. Huang Lingyun's group of 7 gathered around and began to cut up the giant frog. The flesh and blood of a vicious beast of this level was extremely nutritious. There was no reason to waste it. Oh, there's actually a demon core. Mu Long suddenly cried out excitedly. What demon core? Ling Han glanced over and saw that Mu Long was holding a jade-green pearl the size of a walnut. Brother Ling, you don't know about demon cores? Yuan Tian asked with surprise. I really don't know. Ling Han shook his head. Only this kind of vicious beast can give birth to demon cores. They usually have special effects, such as fire resistance or cold resistance. Some can even be used to refine pills or create formations. They're extremely valuable, Yuan Tian explained. Ling Han was shocked. He really hadn't known about demon cores, and they were extremely valuable as well. In truth, demon cores were just too rare. Not even 1 in 100 vicious beasts could give birth to one, and vicious beasts with demon cores were extremely powerful. Mu Long had brought the demon core over. Although everyone wanted it, Ling Han's group of 3 had been the ones to kill the giant frog. No one else had the qualifications to get a share. Ling Han took the demon core and studied it carefully, but he couldn't find anything special about it. He connected to the star web and searched for the giant frog's information. Finally, he found something. This was most likely the detoxification pearl. As its name suggested, it was able to neutralize toxins. Even though it was born from a cast tripod realm giant frog, it could neutralize toxins that were at the life elixir class. However, it required the detoxification pearl to be crushed and consumed. It wasn't like other toxins, which required the detoxification pearl to be placed in the mouth or placed on the wound. Our luck isn't bad. We actually encountered a vicious beast that can give birth to a demon core. Laughter echoed as 5 men walked out from the forest. Seeing Ling Han and the others looking over, one of the men had a cold expression. What are you all waiting for? Hurry up and hand over the demon core. Then, obediently smash the connector, so that you don't have to suffer, another man said. This was to reduce the number of competitors and earn a demon core at the same time. Fang Ming. Huang Lingyun recognized one of the men and immediately introduced him to everyone. An expert ranked over 6,000 on the star web. Fang Ming placed his hands behind his back and displayed an arrogant attitude. Since you all know who I am, what are you all waiting for? Why was there only 5 of them in their team? That was because the other 5 were too weak. Fang Ming felt that they were a burden and destroyed all their connecting devices. From a certain perspective, teammates were also competitors. 5 people was enough. However, Huang Lingyun and the others weren't afraid. They had 3 insane individuals in their team. What was a star web rank of over 6,000? It wasn't even enough to fill the gaps between their teeth. Fang Ming and the others were surprised that these people weren't afraid of them. Alright, the youngsters these days really don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. A red-robed man walked out with a gloomy expression. He pointed at one of the members in Ling Han's team and shouted, "Kneel." Damn, they are truly arrogant. Yuan Tian said leisurely with a mocking expression. He finally had a chance to act cool. It felt great. Who do you think you are? The red-robed man asked coldly. I'm your grandpa. Yuan Tian laughed. The red-robed man couldn't help but reveal an angry expression. He raised his head to the sky and laughed a few times. He then looked back at Yuan Tian. Although it's forbidden to kill here, it doesn't say that you can't beat people up. Hee hee, a loose tongue can cause trouble. I will make you regret it. Your grandpa will always be your grandpa. Come, grandson. Yuan Tian curled his finger, his attitude extremely disdainful. The red-robed man snorted and took large strides towards Yuan Tian. Get down, he said loudly. He struck out with his palm, and the light of lightning surged. Chapter 38:21. The red-clothed man attacked, and Yuan Tian laughed out loud, slapping the red-clothed man in the face. Pa, a slap, and the red-clothed man was sent flying. A silhouette streaked past, and pa, he fell to the ground, motionless. This, Fang Ping and the others' faces twitched, and their eyes were filled with deep fear. He had sent his comrade flying with a single slap. What kind of strength was this? They had kicked a metal plate. Yuan Tian's desire to show off had already broken through the sky. He clasped his hands behind his back and walked towards Fang Ping and the others. How about it? Does anyone else want me to kneel? Sorry for my rudeness. Fang Ping cupped his hands and gave his 3 companions a look. The 4 of them turned and ran at the same time. This man was likely to be ranked in the top 5,000 of the star web, or even higher. They could not fight him head-on. Little Wu, help me out. Yuan Tian called out as he ran after them. All right. Wu Qiyuan also rushed out, his body like a raging bull, rumbling as he stomped on the ground, causing the ground to reverberate. With the 2 of them working together, Fang Ping and the others could not escape at all. They were forcefully blocked. Since these people had taken the initiative, Yuan Ian didn't mind doing the same. He showed off a little more, and after robbing the 5 of them, he destroyed all the connectors of Fang Ping and the others. This way, the 5 of them were eliminated. Fang Ping and the others left angrily, but they did not dare to say anything. Wu Qiyuan and Yuan Tian were too strong, at least for now. Let's go. Let's continue. Ling Han smiled. They continued to hunt for ferocious beasts, but although they killed many for the day, they did not encounter any more ferocious beasts that had nurtured a demon core. At night, they dug a hole and slept. After a night, the sky gradually brightened. They faced the morning sun and cultivated, just like before. During the day, they continued to hunt. It was as if they had become people seeking a living in the primitive forest. On the 5th day, they walked out of the forest, and a huge grassland appeared in front of them. The grass was as tall as a person, and if they did not jump up, their eyesight would be greatly affected, and they would not be able to see far. Ling Han's group of 10 walked on the grass. To the casting cauldron, as long as they had a little bit of power to borrow, they would be able to walk on air. Naturally, walking on the grass was no problem at all. They continued to hunt and had a bountiful harvest. There was a type of ferocious beast on the grassland that resembled a bull, but it had 3 horns and 6 legs. It moved in groups of 3 to 5 and was suitable to be hunted by small teams. Just like that, it was the 7th day. On this day, they continued their pursuit as usual, but all of a sudden, everyone felt the ground tremble violently. What's the situation? The 10 of them were puzzled. At first, they thought that there was a great battle taking place in the distance. A battle at the casting cauldron level could definitely cause such an effect. But soon, the tremors became more and more intense. The grass was like waves, rising and falling. Wu Qiyuan pointed to the sky and saw countless black shadows appear on the horizon. Because they were too far away, he couldn't see clearly what they were. I can see it clearly from so far away. It must be huge. Are they the ones that caused the earth to tremble? In just a short while, the silhouettes of those black shadows could be seen clearly. There were at least a few thousand lions with wings. They were astonishingly huge, and even from so far away, they still emitted a terrifying aura. Within the team, some of the weaker people's legs had already turned to jelly. They had been intimidated by the aura, and this was a complete suppression of the natural order of life. Quick, squat down. These ferocious beasts are looking for food. Wu Qiyuan shouted. Everyone hurriedly jumped down from the tips of the grass and hid in the grass. These lion beasts were at least at the 4 cauldron or 5 cauldron level. Otherwise, It would be impossible for them to have such a terrifying aura. One or two was nothing, but if several thousand of them charged at them together, who could withstand them? Even Ling Han couldn't do it. However, the rumbling of the earth grew more and more intense, and the ground rippled like a carpet. Something's not right. Ling Han frowned. Those lion beasts were flying in the sky. No matter how strong they were, how could they cause the ground to tremble like this? He flew on his artifact and arrived at a higher altitude. His eyes looked over, and his expression instantly changed. "Quick, run!" he shouted down and immediately turned around. Whoosh, he rapidly flew away. Everyone else didn't understand what was going on, but even Ling Han had fled in such a panic. How could they dare not run? Thus, they all flew on their artifacts, closely following Ling Han. After soaring into the sky, they naturally looked back. What they saw caused them to be overwhelmed with shock. On the horizon, there were countless bulls charging in their direction. There were at least 100,000 of them, and the reason they were charging so crazily was because of the lion beasts in the sky. From time to time, one of them would swoop down and grab a bull, instantly tearing it to shreds and allowing the lion beasts to split it among themselves. They had encountered a group of lion beasts hunting and eating, but the herd of bulls was still charging in their direction, dragging them down with them. Whether it was a few thousand lion beasts or 100,000 bulls, they were all incomparably terrifying. They could easily annihilate their entire team. Even if everyone who had entered this place joined forces, they could only retreat in the face of such a situation. Whoosh, a scarlet light shot over from the distance. Ah! One of his teammates instantly screamed as he was struck by the scarlet light. A bloody hole suddenly appeared in his lower abdomen, and he fell head first to the ground. Ling Han was already too late to save him. He hurriedly said through the communication device, "Hurry up and ask for help." At this time, apart from the mighty figures of the Holy Land, who else would dare to save him? He could only give up. He looked at the group of lion beasts. It was precisely one of them that had shot out a scarlet light and easily injured a person. The distance was so far, but the power of one attack was still so powerful. That lion beast had to at least have a cultivation of 6 cauldrons. Fuck, in the entire universe, there were only a mere 1,000 martial artists who had reached 4 cauldrons. How could vicious beasts easily reach 5 cauldrons or 6 cauldrons? The cultivation system of vicious beasts is different. Their growth is completely determined by their bloodline. Whatever level they should be able to reach, they will reach that level after they mature. It will not be affected by talent. However, once they reach the upper limit of their bloodline, they will lose the possibility of advancing further. This was what Wu Yuan said through the communication device. To think that he still had the mood to explain to Ling Han after hearing Ling Han's muttering. So that was how it was. Hey, were those 7 milk babies considered vicious beasts? They did not need to cultivate, but their cultivation levels were increasing bit by bit. Even connate holy physiques could not do this. It was completely in line with the vicious beast's method of cultivation. However, if they were vicious beasts, each and every one of them had extraordinary intelligence. They were completely different from vicious beasts. It was strange. Ling Han collected his thoughts and hurriedly descended from the sky. Then he put away the chaotic Polaris Thunder Tower. Flying in the sky was even more unsafe. He had completely become a living target for the lion beasts. He could still neutralize 1 or 2 attacks, but what about dozens or even hundreds of attacks? It was better to obediently run on the ground. Chapter 3822. The advantage of flying on a magic tool was that it could fly, not increase one's speed. Therefore, this was a plane without any obstacles, so there was no need to fly or leap. Therefore, running on foot was not slow at all. They ran, and sure enough, they were not attacked by the lion beasts. The 9 of them felt lucky, but good times did not last long. They immediately discovered another problem. A herd of raging bulls. They were too fast, so fast that they were even faster than the group's running speed, and they were closing the distance. This was too dangerous. If a herd of raging bulls were to collide with them, then even a life core warrior would be trampled to death. There were too many raging bulls, at least hundreds of thousands of them. Which cauldron could withstand it? Damn, how can the bulls be so fast? 6 legs? What do we do now? If he kept running forward, then with the speed of the barbaric bulls, they would definitely be able to catch up. However, if he ran to the sides and avoided the direction in which the herd of barbaric bulls was running, this was also a big problem. Because running diagonally would definitely be a long distance, it was possible that before he ran out of the area where the barbaric bulls were charging, he would already be caught. We still have to split up. If we are really caught up by the bulls, we will use our magic tools to fly at a low altitude. As long as we don't get hit by the bulls, we will be fine. Ling Han came up with an idea. Everyone nodded. This was the only way. Take care, everyone said through the communication device. In this kind of situation, it was impossible for them to stay together. If they insisted on waiting for each other, it would be a suicidal behavior. They all ran to the left, not daring to deviate too much, or else the bulls would quickly catch up. Fortunately, although the bulls ran faster than them, they did not overtake them by a large margin. Therefore, they did not have to worry about being run over by the bulls for a while. As they ran, they found that the grass had alarmed other teams, and they also joined the escaping team. If any team dared to stay and fight, it would be like a mantis trying to stop a chariot. They would only be crushed into pieces. After so many days, the majority of the teams had walked out of the forest and entered the grassland. Hence, they were all caught up in the chaos and joined the mighty escape. Some people reacted a little slower and were immediately drowned in the horde of vicious beasts. It was unknown if they were trampled to death or if they called for help in time and were rescued. In short, hunters like them had all become prey and could only flee for their lives. Ling Han was separated from the others. Now that everyone was busy with their own matters, how could they have the time to care about others? Activating so close, yet worlds apart, his speed was astonishing. 10 minutes later, he arrived at the edge of the barbaric bull's territory. With just a few more leaps, he would be able to escape from the danger zone. However, right at this moment, a streak of crimson light shot over. Ling Han activated his astral light screen and blocked the attack. He turned his head and saw a lion beast staring at him. Fuck, there is beef everywhere. Why are you targeting me instead of eating it? Tired of beef and wanted a change. The lion beast opened its mouth, and another streak of crimson light shot out towards Ling Han. Ling Han used his astral light screen to block it again, but the crimson light's destructive power was too terrifying. With just one attack, the light screen was shattered. This fellow's strength was not weaker than the giant frog from before. Actually, Ling Han was not afraid of a battle. However, once a battle started, he would be surrounded. This was naturally an extremely stupid thing to do. I'll remember you, Ling Han said as he ran diagonally without looking back. Perhaps the lion beast really wanted a change of taste. It actually flapped its wings and left the pride, chasing after Ling Han. Seeking death? Ling Han sneered in his heart. As long as you leave the group, see if I don't beat you to death. He thought to himself as he ran. However, he did not use so close, yet worlds apart. He slowed down so that the lion beast wouldn't lose him. With one chasing relentlessly and the other intentionally seducing him, they naturally maintained a situation of not abandoning each other. After walking for a while, Ling Han decided to fight. He suddenly stopped, turned around, and faced the ferocious beast in the sky. The lion beast flapped its wings and slowly descended. It raised its head, and there was a kind of incomparable arrogance in it. It was a top-tier predator, and it had a kind of pride as the king of beasts in its bones. Ling Han cracked his fingers. Come, I'll teach you how to be a human today. The lion beast's intelligence was limited. It did not chase after Ling Han because this new prey was interesting. Instead, it really wanted a change of taste. There was no need for it to be so proud of its prey. Thus, it immediately rushed towards Ling Han, opened its mouth, and slashed wildly with crimson light. Ling Han punched out, shattering the streaks of crimson light. When the last streak of crimson light was also destroyed, the lion beast had already arrived. It spread its wings and quickly turned around, slashing one of its wings at Ling Han. This was like a divine blade. The tip of the wings emitted a cold, iron-like light, and it was definitely able to cut through iron like mud. Ling Han snorted. His fists were wrapped with destructive energy as he immediately executed the demon monkey fist. There was only one move, but this was an emperor art. A single punch was sufficient. Bang! A single punch blasted through, and the lion beast was instantly sent flying. It crashed heavily on the ground and struggled violently. Its wings flapped wildly, and its forelegs kicked frantically. It was as though it was drunk and was tossing and turning on the ground, unable to stand up. In just half a minute, it stopped moving and laid quietly on the ground. There was a large amount of blood gushing out from its chest, and its vitality was severed. Ling Han also sat on the ground. It might be just a single punch, but it seemed to have sucked out all his energy. If there were still enemies, he would definitely be able to fight again. However, he wouldn't be able to circulate the demon monkey fist for a long period of time. Emperor art was an absolute divine ability that only the ancestral king could casually execute. After Ling Han rested for a moment, he dissected the lion beast and wanted to see if there was any demon core. To his disappointment, there wasn't any. He didn't waste it and kept the lion beast into his spatial artifact. This was a cast tripod realm ferocious beast, and its flesh and blood were great nourishment. How could he miss it? I don't know what the situation is like outside. I better not go there first. Ling Han looked at the surrounding environment. He was at the foot of a mountain. This mountain wasn't tall or big. Compared to the giant tree that was thousands of feet tall, it could only be considered a small mound. He took large strides and planned to take a roundabout route. After walking for a while, he faintly smelled a fragrance. As an outstanding alchemist, Ling Han was certain that this was the smell of an immortal herb. He survived a great calamity and was going to give him an immortal herb? Ling Han naturally wouldn't miss it. He followed the fragrance and soon, a cave appeared in front of him. The fragrance was coming from the cave. The immortal herb was in the cave. Ling Han pondered for a moment and didn't act rashly. He temporarily turned off the connection device and put on the void beast skin before walking into the cave. There were plenty of powerful ferocious beasts here, and he had to be careful. Chapter 38-24. Phew, Brother Ling, you're finally here again. Ha, I thought you were dead. I was worried for nothing. As soon as he connected to the Holy Lands network, Ling Han immediately received several messages. Are you all alright? Ling Han asked. Sigh, we're in trouble. Including you, there are only 5 of us left, Yuan Tian said. Only half of them were left. Ling Han sighed, but thinking about how dangerous the situation was, it was already good that half of them survived. Are you all together now? He asked. Yes, after avoiding the barbaric bull tide, we've been together again. You're the only one left now. Alright, I'll be right there. The connector actually had many functions. As long as the map was brought up, it would show the location of the team members. It was very convenient. Therefore, all Ling Han had to do was head in that direction. He used his movement technique and moved very quickly. After half a day, he found Wu Qiyuan and the other 3. Each of them had more or less some injuries, which was enough to prove how terrifying the beast tide was. Although they had only been separated for 2 days, everyone felt like they had been reborn, and they were closer to each other. The 5 who had been eliminated were the weakest among them. Yuan Tian, Wu Qiyuan, Huang Lingyun, and Mu Long were still standing, but Luo Shan, Ma Gang, and the others had been eliminated, and no one knew if they were still alive. Let's continue. They moved forward and began hunting again. On the afternoon of the 9th day, everyone received a message. Now, I'll announce the score and remaining members of each team. Every 10 minutes, I'll also show everyone's location on the map. As expected, a notice board appeared in the Holy Lands network through the connector, listing the score and remaining members of each team. Ling Han's team was in first place, with a total of 752 points. On average, everyone had a little more than 150 points. The second-place team also had 684 points, but 6 people were still in the team, so the average score was even lower. The team in third place had exactly 600 points, but they only had 4 people, so on average each person's score would be 150 points, second only to Ling Han's team. Perhaps it would only be a matter of killing one more ferocious beast. With such intuition, everyone only needed to do a slight calculation to know which teams would be eliminated and which teams would advance into the top 100. More importantly, everyone's position appeared on the map almost instantaneously. It was basically saying, come on, kill this group of people, and we'll be able to squeeze into the top 100. There was a lot of gambling involved in this. Eliminating the members of the enemy team might not necessarily allow one to squeeze into the top 100. This was because as long as the enemy team had more than 3 members, everyone's average score would be higher even if there was one less member. They could eliminate other teams, or they could eliminate their own people. They could also continue hunting dire beasts. There were many options. This time, a great battle is unavoidable. Ling Han shook his head, but he was not afraid at all. He was already at the 4-cauldron realm, and his battle prowess was at least equal to that of a 7-cauldron realm martial artist. Their team was first in terms of overall score and average score, so they naturally had the initiative to continue hunting dire beasts to maintain their lead. But among the other teams, the slaughter had already begun. It was clear from the leaderboard that a team would disappear from time to time, while some teams' numbers would decrease sharply, and the individual rankings would immediately change. That night, Ling Han and the others were planning to find a place to rest when they heard Huang Lingyun say, "Not good. There are many people heading our way." They could see that there were many points on the map very close to them, and these points were very densely packed. They were clearly in cahoots. A quick count showed that there were as many as 30 of them. This was clearly not just one team. How dare they have designs on us? We'll make sure they never return. Yuan Tian laughed. The flames of posturing were already burning. Wu Qiuan only clenched his fists and did not speak. He was a simple person. He only had one word for it: fight. Ling Han was even more nonchalant. He was unperturbed, as if he had not heard it all. Seeing that the 3 generals were like this, Huang Lingyun was naturally relieved. After a while, silhouettes appeared from all directions, forming a circle and surrounding them. Hand over the connecting device. The other side did not waste words. With such a good opportunity, how could Yuan Tian not show off? He strode out, incomparably flamboyant. You want the connecting device? Fine, but who can take 3 moves from me? I'll think about it. Haha. Many people began to laugh. Idiot, we know that your team is amazing and has the highest score. Who would want to fight you one-on-one? Damn, his posturing had failed. Yuan Tian's embarrassment turned to anger. Was it easy for him to show off? Why was it always being foiled? I'll beat you all to death. He roared, taking the initiative to attack. You're courting death. Those people immediately attacked, suppressing Yuan Tian. However, 4 cauldrons was still 4 cauldrons. This had broken the limit, so how could it be ordinary? The 4 cauldrons obtained through cultivation were different from the 4 cauldrons obtained through cultivation. The 4 cauldrons obtained through cultivation were 4 cauldrons, but the 4 cauldrons obtained through cultivation could reach 5 cauldrons of power, or even more. Yuan Tian's combat strength was close to 5 cauldrons, 2 minor realms higher than ordinary heavenly cauldrons. This made him like a tiger in a pack of wolves, able to do as he pleased. But a pack of wolves was still a pack of wolves. They were not defenseless sheep. Some of the 30 people were in charge of restraining Yuan Tian, while others launched powerful attacks from behind. This put a great deal of pressure on Yuan Tian. After all, those who could participate in the competition were all extraordinary, and those who had lasted until now were even more so. Before long, Yuan Tian was already stretched to the limit and cut a sorry figure. I'm coming. Wu Yuan roared and charged into the fray. He was a brute, and he charged forward, taking in all the attacks that came his way. His powerful physique could dissolve most of them, and then he launched a fierce counterattack that left his opponents unable to dodge. However, 2 fierce tigers still weren't enough to suppress this pack of wolves. Huang Lingyun and Mu Long also entered the fray. Although they were ranked in the top 10,000 of the star web, in the current situation, their strength couldn't be considered strong at all. They could just barely protect themselves. Ling Han didn't take action. He just watched from the side. "Kid, you seem to be very free." Someone stared at him. Ling Han smiled. "You'd best not provoke me." "So what if I provoke you?" That person didn't believe him and walked over to Ling Han. Ling Han sighed and slapped out with his palm. Bang! That person's clothes, including their connectors, were all turned to dust. Just like that. Chapter 38:25. A single palm strike had eliminated one person. That person was not injured, but he was instantly turned into a naked pig, which naturally made him extremely angry and embarrassed. However, he did not dare to make a move. This palm strike didn't injure him in the slightest, only shattering his clothes and connectors. The difficulty was several times higher than killing him. How would he dare to provoke such an expert? He quickly covered his crotch with his hand and quickly retreated. Hiss, so this guy is the core of the team. The alliance of 30 people all looked over. That palm strike just now was enough to prove how terrifying Ling Han was. Let's attack together and get rid of him first. Alright. 20 of them immediately rushed over, while the remaining 9 entangled Yuan Tian and the others, not giving them a chance to support Ling Han. But does it work? Ling Han looked casual, but with every punch, a person would explode into a pig. After 10 punches, half of them had already exposed their white buttocks. This time, no one dared to make a move. He was too strong, to the point of being abnormal. The remaining people all took to their heels and fled. However, since Ling Han had already made his move, how could he allow anyone to escape? He activated so close, yet worlds apart, and every time he caught up to them, he would add another punch. After another 10 punches, the remaining 10 people also became naked pigs. When he turned around, Yuan Tian and the others also displayed their might, suppressing their opponents. At this point, the 30-man team was completely annihilated. They opened the map and saw that there was originally a dot of light that was approaching them, but now it was far away. Obviously, although these people couldn't see what had happened, they could guess what had happened when the 30 dots of light quickly disappeared. The 5 people here were too strong. They were outnumbered and defeated their opponents. The first-ranked team was indeed powerful. It was better not to provoke them. After the night, there was only one day left for the competition. Ling Han and the others continued to hunt. On the way, they met a team of 4 people led by Lin Qi. But the two sides just met face to face and did not fight. In the afternoon, they even met Jie Yingqiu's team. This beauty actually had as many as 15 people by her side. Clearly, they were not from the same team, but because of her, they had gathered together. The power of a beautiful woman could not be underestimated, especially someone like her. There was probably only one in tens of thousands of galaxies who could make it onto the beauty list. The closer it was to the end of the competition, the more intense the infighting became. From time to time, teams would disappear, and teams would suddenly change from 6, 5, 4 to 3. As a result, the ranking of the teams changed very quickly, and the individual rankings changed even more rapidly. However, when the sun disappeared from the horizon, it meant the end of the competition. They received a notice that everyone was to gather at a place where there was a teleportation array to leave. After walking for half a day, Ling Han's group of 5 arrived at a simple campsite. However, there was an ancient mirror floating in the air. From time to time, a beam of light would flash past, emitting a chilling aura. Although vicious beasts had no intelligence, they would instinctively seek fortune and avoid danger, so they would naturally stay far away from this camp. Many people had already returned. There was no lack of people who had been eliminated midway or had lost their connection devices. They had all been sent here by the people of the 9 Suns Sacred Ground. This time, they were not teleported in groups of 10, but in groups of 100. In a short while, everyone left the brutal, violent planet and appeared in the 9 Suns Sacred Ground again. Those who had been eliminated early naturally left dejectedly, and even those who had persisted until the end of the competition would most of them be eliminated. The people of the Sacred Ground began to tally the scores, and then listed the top 100 according to the individual rankings. In fact, it was not only 100 but 103 because the final 4 people's scores were the same. Then they would relax a little and take all of them. There were 103 on the cauldron forging side, and 102 on the foundation building tier side, for a total of 205. For a sacred ground, such a number was not at all high. Even if it was the same for the next 9 years, there would only be a total of over 2,000 people, which could be said to be quite shabby. The Empress and the others passed smoothly, although their rankings were not the highest. Those who passed had entered the real 9 Suns sacred ground. The foundation building tier disciples lived in the foundation building valley, and the cauldron forging tier disciples lived in the cauldron mountain. In the future, when they entered the life core realm, they would move to the life core sea. From the true self realm, they were qualified to live in the sacred palace. As the 9 Suns sacred ground only opened its doors to accept disciples once every 10,000 years, the gap in cultivation was very obvious. Those who could live for more than 10,000 years had to be at the true self realm. There were very few in the true self realm because true self realm cultivators could live for 10,000 years at most. Those who could live for such a long time were basically extremely lucky and ate holy medicine that could prolong their life. However, it was not that there were no foundation building, cauldron forging, or even life core disciples in the sacred ground. This was because some elders would also accept a few disciples in private. Some of them were Tao children by their side. After receiving guidance, after a long time, a few naturally embarked on the path of cultivation. Because they had just entered the sacred ground, everyone behaved very low-key. In the sacred ground, everyone used the sacred ground's special connection device and had internal use of contribution points. To put it bluntly, they were universe dollars. However, they could not use Tao stones to top up. Instead, they had to make actual contributions to the sacred ground in order to obtain contribution points. These contribution points included achievements in martial art or glory won for the sect. There were quite a lot of ways to earn contribution points. Ling Han learned in detail that the 9 Suns sacred ground did not have a sacred lord. There was only a substitute sacred lord. This was a rule set by the 9 Sun Saint back then. The 9 Sun Saint's proud ultimate technique was the 9 Sun Finger. Back then, he was almost invincible in the world. After he failed to compete for the position of ancestral monarch, he devoted himself to research and cultivated an even stronger ultimate technique called the God-slaying art. However, the God-slaying art did not leave behind a cultivation technique. Instead, it was hidden by the 9 Sun Saints somewhere. Whoever could find the God-slaying art and learn it would become the sacred lord of the 9 Suns sacred ground. Why did the 9 Suns sacred ground recruit so few disciples? It did not match the status of a sacred ground at all. This was also a rule set by the 9 Sun Saint. The quality of the successor was not the quantity. It was just right for the limited resources to be gathered to nurture a powerful successor. Otherwise, wouldn't it be a disgrace to the 9 Sun Saint if they walked out? Ling Han felt that this saint was a bit extreme. That was because even those imperial clans did not have such rules, and there were no great emperors or ancestral kings that would hide their invincible techniques away so that their descendants would spend all their effort to find them. In that case, was it easy to learn the 9 Sun Finger? It was difficult. This was because only the substitute sacred lord could learn it. In order to become the substitute sacred lord, one had to first become a Taoist, stand out from the 9 Taoists, and be the first to reach the supremacy realm. Then, one had to wait for the previous sacred lord to die or resign before they could succeed. In that case, no matter how smooth it would still take tens of thousands of years. The current substitute sacred lord had only lived for more than 60,000 years, so he could at least live for another 20,000 years. Therefore, the fastest way to obtain a sage technique was to find the God-slaying art and become the sacred lord. The 9 Sun Finger was naturally in the bag. Chapter 38-26. Every generation of disciples, including elders and substitute sacred leaders, had been searching for the whereabouts of the God-slaying art. However, no one had succeeded in the past 100 million years. Who knew where the 9 Sun Sage had hidden this sacred technique? Some people even guessed that the Nine-Sun Sage had not created this technique that was said to be comparable to an emperor technique. He had only boasted about it because of his pride. In order not to embarrass himself, he could only say that he had hidden the god-slaying art. Nearly 100 million years had passed. Ling Han naturally could not deduce which was real and which was fake. He would first believe that the god-slaying art really existed. In the sacred ground, there was a cultivation technique that could be cultivated directly. It was called the Earth Mystic Art, which was equivalent to the sect master level. Ordinary disciples could cultivate the sect master level cultivation technique. It showed how rich the sacred ground was. Above the Earth Mystic Art was the Heaven Mystic Art, which was equivalent to the supremacy level. However, the Heaven Mystic Art was not easy to obtain. It had to be exchanged with contribution points, and it could only be exchanged for techniques that did not exceed one's cultivation level. Above the Heaven Mystic Art was the Extreme Yang Meridian. This was a sage technique that only Taoists could cultivate. Other than that, the sacred ground had many secret techniques that could be exchanged with contribution points or tried one's luck. This was because one could pick up a stone by the side of the road and have a secret technique carved on it. Why did he do that? This was to encourage disciples to use their brains and find the god-slaying art. Ling Han couldn't help but sigh upon seeing this. The Saint of Nine Suns had ruined all of his future disciples. Therefore, in summary, there were 4 points: contribution points, luck, Taoists, and the god-slaying art. Everything would be settled if one found the god-slaying art. Otherwise, one could only use contribution points to exchange for it or try one's luck or obtain some cultivation techniques and secret techniques after becoming a Taoist. Evidently, it was too difficult to find the god-slaying art. Becoming a Taoist also required time. Therefore, what Ling Han could do now was try his luck or earn contribution points. Trying one's luck was not reliable. Earning contribution points was the most reliable way. Although Tao stones could not be exchanged for contribution points, it did not mean that other things could not be handed over. For example, elixirs. The level of elixirs was also the standard to measure a faction. If one had a lot of resources but no alchemist could refine them into pills, it would be a huge waste. However, there were too many monks and not enough gruel. There would never be enough pills. Therefore, if they handed over the pills to the Holy Land, they would be able to exchange them for contribution points. Ling Han planned to start from there. He took a look. Between the foundation establishment and cauldron casting levels, the most expensive pills were the foundation transformation pill and the cauldron forging pill. What is the cauldron pill? After consuming it, it could form the core of an immortal cauldron and help the martial artist cultivate an immortal cauldron. Of course, it was only an aid and not a guarantee of success. This pill was extremely difficult to refine. Why this was because the alchemist needed to have at least 4 cauldrons of cultivation in order to condense the core with their own immortal cauldron power. But how many alchemists are martial art geniuses? Dual cultivation of martial arts and alchemy was already very rare, but dual cultivation was naturally even more difficult. Ling Han smiled. Wasn't this just right for him? He couldn't refine the foundation transformation pill now, so he didn't plan to hand over the remaining foundation transformation pills. Who knew if Ling Shi and the others would give him grandchildren or great-grandchildren? Therefore, it was better to keep the foundation transformation pills. He didn't know how long it would take to wait for a second person who could refine the foundation transformation pill. The cauldron forging pill's pill recipe was also quite expensive. It sold for 5 million universe credits on the Star Web, but Ling Han still bought it. It was extremely practical and easy to sell. The buying and selling of things like pill recipes was done in real time. Ling Han had just paid the money, and the pill recipe had already appeared in his connecting device. He only needed to call it out to be able to check it out. Ling Han studied it carefully, then meditated and simulated it in his mind. After a few times, he had some confidence. He continued to buy materials and transported them through the teleportation array. He spent money like water. First one and the others had become smarter. Otherwise, he would have collected tickets and made a lot of money. Forget it, it's all the same if I refine pills myself. After buying the ingredients, Ling Han shut himself in his room and concentrated on concocting alchemical pills. Empress, Lin Luo, and the others had the advantage in numbers, so they didn't have to worry about being treated unfairly. Therefore, Ling Han only needed to work hard to earn contribution points. Even though he was the Alchemy Emperor, Ling Han still failed many times when he first started. However, it only took 2 days for Ling Han to refine the first batch of cauldron forging pill. The first success meant that Ling Han couldn't fail again. Ling Han continued refining. Except for the half an hour of cultivation in the morning, he spent the rest of his time refining pills. 10 days later he finally came out. He tidied himself up a bit, then went out and ran towards the Holy Palace. At the bottom of Cast Cauldron Mountain was a huge square. At one end of the square was the Holy Palace. There was a stone tablet in the middle of the square, which was surrounded by many people. What's so interesting about a blank stone tablet? Ling Han didn't understand. It wasn't like he hadn't seen this stone tablet when he entered the Holy Palace. It was blank and ordinary. Why was it surrounded by so many people? He walked over and heard the discussion of the crowd. Only then did he come to a realization. The stone tablet wasn't blank, but there were rows of names. What kind of ranking is this? Total contribution points. Is this to motivate one's competitive heart? Ling Han took a look. The first on the list was Gan Ping. He was a super genius ranked 188th on the Star Web, and his total contribution points were 206. The total contribution points didn't count consumption and represented one's contribution to the Holy Palace. As expected of Gan Ping. His talent is too terrifying. He only took 3 days to grasp the Dragon Spirit Sword technique. That's right. I haven't learned it yet. He's in the top 200 of the Star Web after all. He's indescribably monstrous. Everyone gasped in surprise, and Ling Han only found out after looking at the message on the connection device. It turned out that an elder had given a public lecture 7 days ago, imparting a set of Dragon Spirit Sword technique, and he had been so focused on concocting alchemical pills that he had turned off the connection device, so he had not received any news at all. Quickly learning a sword technique could also earn contribution points? Damn, didn't they say that secret arts had to be exchanged for with contribution points or found by luck? Ling Han couldn't help but feel that it was a pity. If he had known earlier, he would have gone. Forget it. He would hand over the Cauldron Heart Elixir first. Ling Han walked past the plaza and arrived at the entrance of the palace. There were guards here, and anyone below the True Self realm had to go through a report before entering. After knowing why Ling Han was here, the guard called for a comrade and asked him to bring Ling Han in to look for someone. The two of them quickly arrived at the elixir storage room. There was an elder sitting there calmly. Ulchin. The guard bowed respectfully. Why are you here to disturb me? The old man asked indifferently. This disciple wants to contribute an elixir. Oh. The old man didn't mind at all. What elixir? Cauldron Heart Elixir. What? The old man immediately stood up with a burning gaze. Chapter 3828. Seeing this, Ling Han smiled. If Elder Yen is in a difficult position, then give me the original price. How could Yen Dong keep his face? Was he going back on his word to a junior? No need, just 100 contribution points each. He was someone who cared about his face. Thank you, Elder Yen. Ling Han hurriedly bowed. He was just pretending to be polite. Oh no, what am I doing? Yen Dong's mouth twitched. He wanted to slap himself. Ling Han had already given in. Why did he have to be so stubborn about his face? He reaped what he sowed. The old man felt uncomfortable. He waved his hand, indicating that Ling Han could leave. He wanted to be alone. The guard from before still led Ling Han out. His face was filled with envy and he said, Elder Yen is famous for his iron mask. You can obtain Elder Yan's recognition. In the future, in the Holy Land, no one should dare to bully you. Ling Han smiled. Even without Yen Dong's protection, he wasn't afraid of anyone. When had Ling Han ever been afraid of someone at the same level? Ling Han was quite satisfied with this trip. He'd gotten 6,000 contribution points in one go. He could exchange them for some good things. He told the guard that he wanted to take a seat first. The guard didn't rush him. After all, this was Elder Yan's favorite. Ling Han opened the Sacred Lands connection device to search for the things he needed and could exchange for. He naturally ignored the medicinal pills. He could refine them himself. Using contribution points to exchange for them was stupid. But he still took a look. The price of the Cauldron Heart pill was actually 100 contribution points. Dim so dark. Although Ling Han didn't lose anything, this was because Yen Dong had doubled the price. Normally, it should be 50. However, other than requiring contribution points to exchange for the Cauldron Heart pill, there was also an explanation. That was, there was a limited quantity, and only 3 pills were available every month. If more than one person applied for it, the Holy Land would decide which 3 pills to give to, or even all of them to a single person. Forget it, he wouldn't look. Ling Han had found the heavenly treasures, and this was what he was concerned about. In his hands, the value of the heavenly treasures could be multiplied. 9 exquisite grass, amethyst heaven's heart stone, and yellow flower fruit were dazzling to the eyes, causing Ling Han to be incomparably conflicted. He wanted this, he wanted that, but he only had so many contribution points. Which one should he choose? If others knew about this, they would definitely be filled with envy and jealousy. Other people would have to save up for months or even years to exchange for a single treasure, but you can choose a few. What else do you want? Ling Han wasn't in a hurry to make his move. He continued to check. Weren't there still cultivation techniques and immortal arts? He only took a glance and then shook his head. This was because the contribution points required to exchange for cultivation techniques and celestial techniques was too high. Even the lowest one required 1,000 contribution points. Change? Of course not. How could a cultivation technique or secret technique that could be exchanged for 1,000 contribution points enter Ling Han's eyes? He looked at something else. Array. Ling Han quickly fixed his eyes on an array called the Three-Faced Aquarius Array. This was a Life Core class array. In theory, it could kill a Life Core realm martial artist, but it was very troublesome to set it up. It required the heaven and earth environment to meet the requirements in order to change the power of heaven and earth and form a great array to kill a Life Core realm martial artist. Ling Han decided to exchange for this as it would become one of his trump cards in the future. If any Life Core realm martial artist wanted to kill him, he would set up the Three-Faced Aquarius Array, lure the opponent into the array, and refine them alive. He submitted the exchange request, and because he had enough contribution points, 5,300 contribution points were immediately deducted from him. All the information about this array formation also appeared in his connection device. Without reaching the rank of an elder, he couldn't transfer all the cultivation techniques, secret techniques, elixir recipes, and array formations that could be exchanged with contribution points. Otherwise, he would be punished for betraying the sacred ground. After exchanging, Ling Han set off once again and walked out of the palace. Previously, he wasn't in a hurry to leave, because if he wanted to exchange for the real thing, he would have to go to the sacred palace to get it, and he would have to make another trip. He left the palace, and he hadn't walked a few steps when he saw that the people who were originally surrounding the stone tablet in the plaza were all looking at him. They were all shocked. How could they not be shocked? This guy had obtained a total of 6,000 contribution points, leaving Gong Ping, who was in second place, far behind. Ling Han didn't care, and he walked with large strides. He still had to study the array formation. He didn't hand over all the Cauldron Heart pills, but left a portion for auction on the Star Web. Otherwise, he couldn't just sit around and eat them all, right? After the auction, he asked the large black dog to make a trip, and as usual, the Chang clan was responsible for the transportation. This gave him a large amount of universe coins, and Ling Han rented the time house to quickly master the Three-Faced Aquarius Array. More than 10 days passed, and Ling Han walked out of the time house with a smile on his face. He had already thoroughly understood this array formation, and he could try to make the array foundation. He put on the Sacred Land connection device again, and found that many people were discussing the matter of his contribution points. Suddenly obtaining so many contribution points naturally attracted the curiosity of others, wondering if there was something fishy about it. And the Sacred Palace also explained that Ling Han had used the Cauldron Heart Pill to exchange for contribution points. Because it was his first time, and because the Cauldron Heart Pill was too precious and practical, they gave him double the contribution points. This was naturally Yendong's excuse. He couldn't say that he had cheated himself, could he? Many people expressed envy, but there were also some who made sarcastic remarks, such as Gong Ping, who said that alchemy was a minor path and martial art was the true path. Which alchemist had become an ancestor king? Ling Han only chuckled. This was completely jealousy, and there was no need to take it to heart. However, everyone also guessed that Ling Han was definitely a genius alchemist, and had even formed 4 cauldrons, which was a prerequisite to concocting the Cauldron Heart Pill. For cauldrons, what kind of concept was that? Among the current cast cauldron martial artists, Ling Han's strength could be ranked in the top 1,000. Previously, Ling Han was in seclusion, but now that he came out, many people immediately came to visit him, trying to curry favor with him. It was mainly because of his alchemy prowess that he hoped Ling Han would be able to help them concoct the Cauldron Heart Pill. After all, it was far too difficult to use contribution points to exchange for the Cauldron Heart Pill. Even though Ling Han had easily obtained 6,000 contribution points, it would be extremely difficult for anyone else to obtain even a single contribution point. Master, Fairy Tan wishes to see you. A Dao child came to report to Ling Han. In the sacred ground, every disciple would be accompanied by a Dao child to handle some trivial matters. This Dao child of Ling Han's was called Mingyu. He was only 14 or 15 years old, and he had just broken through to the secret realm not long ago. Ling Han took a look at him, and saw that this half-grown child's face was full of admiration, and he looked as if his soul had left his body. Well, he must have been smitten by Tan Meng. She was indeed a stunner on the exceptional beauty list, and even such a young man had fallen for her. Ling Han couldn't help but laugh. Please come in. Chapter 38-29. A Beautiful Romance. Mingyu hurriedly ran off to invite someone, and in a short while, there was the sound of jingling ornaments, and an exquisite beauty appeared in front of Ling Han. Even with Ling Han's picky eyes, he had to admit that this woman was indeed beautiful, beautiful to the point of being otherworldly and elegant, even more beautiful than the demon princess, second only to the empress and Hunyou. One had to know that she was only ranked 53rd on the exceptional beauty roll. If she was in the top 10, what kind of beauty would she have? Probably she would really be comparable to Hunyou and the empress. Ling Han sized up this seductive beauty with an appreciative gaze. She had a slender figure, and was clearly exquisite and beautiful, but because her slender waist was barely bunched, it inevitably made both her breasts appear very voluptuous, adding a hint of charm. Greetings, senior brother Ling, she smiled faintly, revealing a little bit of her pearly white teeth, looking very charming. Mingyu was already dumbfounded, her small face flushed red. Ling Han was only appreciative, and naturally wouldn't be flustered. He smiled faintly. Greetings, junior sister. Senior brother, are you disdainful of me, not even inviting me to sit? Tan Meng said faintly as if she had been mistreated, making one's heart melt. Ling Han stretched out his hand and said, Please sit. Tan Meng finally broke into a smile, instantly like 100 flowers blooming, beautiful beyond compare. She sat down in an incredibly elegant posture, and just looked at Ling Han quietly, not speaking. Ling Han sighed and said, Mingyu, don't look anymore, quickly go make some tea. Mingyu seemed to wake up from a dream, and hurriedly turned around. Pung, in her haste, she even bumped into a pillar. Thankfully, she didn't use any force, or the pillar would definitely break. Seeing this, Tan Meng couldn't help but cover her small mouth and laugh lightly. Ling Han shook his head. Once junior sister comes, even I, a Dao attendant, can't do anything. Senior brother Ling, are you saying that I'm a femme fatale? Tan Meng asked with a smile. I wouldn't dare. Tan Meng laughed again. Senior apprentice brother, you are too modest. With your 4 cauldron cultivation and your achievements in the Pill Dao, you are definitely in the top 3 among this batch of disciples. What is there to be afraid of? Although the flattery was good, what had Ling Han been through? How could he be flattered so easily? He smiled. If there's anything you want to say, just say it. Senior apprentice brother, what are you saying? Can't I come to see you if I have nothing to do? Laughed Tan Meng. Sure. Ling Han nodded. I'm a straightforward person. Why don't we go to the bedroom and be honest with each other? The smile on Tan Meng's face immediately disappeared. She had never thought that Ling Han would be so direct. It was true that she saw Ling Han in a different light, but it was not in terms of a man or a woman. Instead, it was because she had taken a fancy to Ling Han's ability in alchemy that she wanted to use her personal charm to charm Ling Han. In her heart, the person who could be her son-in-law had to be in the top 100 of the star web. Although Ling Han had cultivated 4 cauldrons, that was all. He was at most in the top 700 of the star web, and he was still far from the top 100. Senior apprentice brother Ling, you must be joking. Tan Meng forced a smile. I never joke about this. Ling Han shook his head with a serious expression. Tan Meng was suddenly at a loss for words. She felt as if she had met a hooligan, and she was powerless to resist. Her beauty wasn't just for show. Her intelligence was also outstanding. Otherwise, wouldn't she be a pretty face and an idiot? However, when she encountered someone like Ling Han who didn't walk the normal path, it was as if her emotional intelligence and intelligence had short-circuited. Fortunately, Ming Yu just happened to send tea over. She hurriedly drank it while calming her emotions and sorting out her thoughts. She decided that she could not be polite anymore. Otherwise, she would be teased to death by Ling Han. Senior apprentice brother Ling, actually, I did come this time to ask senior apprentice brother for help. Ling Han, on the other hand, sighed softly, so, you are still playing with me. Tan Meng was instantly speechless. Playing with you? Would I dare to play with you? It was clearly you who was teasing me. She finally understood that Ling Han did not treat her as a goddess or a fairy. He did not have any feelings for her. Otherwise, no man would speak to an interested lady like that. I want to ask senior apprentice brother to help me refine a cauldron of moon elixir. She pretended not to hear Ling Han's words and directly stated her purpose. Moon elixir. Ling Han thought for a moment and said, oh. He did not know how to refine the moon elixir, but he had seen the introduction of this elixir before. It had nothing to do with cultivation, but it could increase one's charm. Temperament was something intangible, but it was said that the moon elixir could increase one's temperament and charm. It was obvious that Tan Meng was not satisfied with being the 52nd on the beauty rankings. She wanted to be the 40th, 30th, or even higher. For powerhouses, it was easy to tell whether or not they had changed their appearance. However, temperament was a different story. Ling Han laughed. I never refine pills for free. How about we go to the bedroom to talk? Tan Meng's expression immediately changed. Senior apprentice brother, don't joke around. I'm such a serious person. How could I joke about such a thing? Ling Han said solemnly. In the end, Tan Meng could not stand it any longer. After saying that her body was unwell, she hurriedly left. Ling Han couldn't help but laugh. This woman clearly wanted him to refine pills for free. What a joke. He owed her. In her dreams. After leaving the room, Tan Meng's intelligence immediately went online. Not good, I've fallen into a trap. She immediately realized that something was wrong. If Ling Han really was such a pervert, how could he have cultivated to such a level? So he had deliberately used this method to chase her away. Although she had thought it through, Tan Meng was still filled with indignation. A beauty on the beauty rankings had actually been rejected by someone. This was too hurtful to her pride. No, she definitely could not take this lying down. It wasn't just Tan Meng. The other 2 beauties on the beauty rankings had also visited Ling Han. But they had no intention of asking Ling Han to refine pills for them. They simply thought that Ling Han was a talent worth roping in. In a short time, the news of the 3 beauties visiting Ling Han had spread like wildfire. Ling Han had instantly become the public enemy number 1. Gan Ping and Lin Qi had publicly said that Ling Han was just an alchemist with mediocre strength. If he dared to fight with them, he would definitely lose within 10 moves. Ling Han couldn't help but ponder whether he should find these two to fight and then collect entrance fees to earn some contribution points. But contribution points couldn't be transferred. That was a problem. Ling Han had also said that if he wanted to fight, he would fight. But Gan Ping and Lin Qi had expressed that it was beneath them to fight with a weakling like Ling Han. Bullying an alchemist would only lower their status. Fuck, they were the ones who said they wanted to fight, but they were also the ones who said they didn't want to fight. Ling Han couldn't be bothered with them. He had bought the materials through the star web and was going to create the foundation of the 3-aspect Aquarius array. This wasn't something that could be done in a day. He had painstakingly researched and destroyed many materials, but he still couldn't create the array foundation. He was very busy now. Aside from cultivating, he still had to refine pills and study formations. A few days later, he planned to go out for a walk and change his mood. Perhaps it would be helpful. After walking for a while, he suddenly had an epiphany. He sat down under a tree and was about to seize this epiphany. Pa! Something smashed down from above. He hurriedly dodged and raised his head to look. First, set a small goal for yourself, for example, bookmark. Chapter 38:30. The 9 Suns Sacred Ground only recruited once every 10,000 years. Therefore, the appearance of an old man here was very likely to be an old monster who had lived for 10,000 years or even longer. What does that mean? He was at least at the true self realm, but he was more likely to be a spirit transformation perfected lord or sect master level expert. Brat, now that you've seen me, why haven't you saluted yet? The old man snorted, and his aura surged out. Ling Han originally wanted to salute. It was necessary to maintain respect for elders, but when he heard what the other party said, he felt that something was wrong. Then, he recalled that the other party had purposely thrown a fruit pit at him. Was this something an elder should do? Therefore, he activated his pupil technique and looked at the elder again. Damn, his smile tugged at the corners of Ling Han's lips, and then he shook his head. No. How dare you? The elder roared and leapt onto the ground. Behind him, an illusory figure appeared, forming the destruction of stars. It was terrifying to the extreme. This far exceeded the level of a forging cauldron. It was even the power of a sect master. However, Ling Han was unhurried as he circled around the old man. Brat, you must be tired of living, said the elder. Ling Han chuckled and didn't say anything. He continued to walk in circles. Do you really want to die? How brazen. I'll give you one more chance. Don't make a mistake. The elder roared, his voice booming like thunder. Ling Han couldn't help but laugh. Don't be all talk and no action. Come, teach me a lesson. The old man flew into a rage, and with a wave of his hand, great stars appeared behind him. Each great star was imprinted with incomparably complex symbols, and it was as if even a spirit transformation true monarch would only be able to wait for death if one of them crashed down. With a smile on his face, Ling Han placed his hands behind his back, looking calm and composed. Shouted the old man again. He suddenly pulled back his hand and pressed it against his stomach. Not good, I ate something bad. Kid, just you wait. I'll go to the toilet first, and then I'll come back to deal with you. He turned to run. Xiao, Ling Han's figure flashed, blocking his opponent's path. Kid, this old man will spare your life for now. Don't get carried away. The old man said coldly. Ling Han laughed heartily. Come on, old senior. How do you want to teach me a lesson? I. The old man's eyes darted around. He didn't look like a sect master-level elite at all. He suddenly pointed behind Ling Han and said, Look, what's that? Ling Han remained unmoved and continued to stare at him. Why don't you turn around? The elder couldn't help but ask. I turned my head to look. What if you ran away? Ling Han said. What kind of joke is this? Do you know who I am? Shouted the elder. Ling Han broke into a grin. A cat demon. Puff, the old man originally wanted to roar a few more times, but after hearing Ling Han's words, he immediately wilted and revealed a shocked expression. You actually saw through my true body. What's so difficult about that? Ling Han asked calmly. Bam! There was a flash of light, and the old man in front of him immediately transformed. From a mighty figure with an imposing aura, he turned into a normal-sized white cat with a bell hanging around his neck. "Meow kid, how did you see through me?" the white cat asked, clearly curious. Although it was in cat form, this was no beast. It was a cat demon that was intelligent and knew how to play tricks. "Fiery eyes," Ling Han said with a smile. "Forget it. To be able to see through my illusion, you must have cultivated an ocular ability. There are only a few people like that in the entire star field." The white cat licked its paws. "Kid, I'm warning you. Don't expose me or I'll tell that old man Ninth Mountain to suppress you." Ling Han's heart stirred. Could Ninth Mountain be Venerable Ninth Mountain? "You're Venerable Ninth Mountain's pet beast?" he asked. "You're the pet beast. Your whole family are pet beasts." The white cat immediately became agitated. "One day, I'll suppress that Ninth Mountain guy and make him show me how to play fur balls every day." Suddenly, it pounced forward, grabbed a ball and started playing with it. But as it played, it realized something was wrong. It quickly stopped and glared at Ling Han with a bitter and hateful gaze. This was the guy who threw the ball at it. Yet, out of reflex, it lost control and pounced on him. It really wanted to chop off its own paws. Ling Han pursed his lips. "I see that you're having fun. You clearly want to play with it yourself, right? Tui tui tui, I'm a noble illusionary cloud cat. Why would I like to play with such childish things?" the white cat said proudly. Ling Han threw another ball. The white cat tragically realized that it had pounced on the ball again. It was completely defenseless. Ling Han shrugged and said, "Look." He was shocked. The illusionary cloud cat wasn't very powerful, but it was adept at creating illusions. The higher the realm, the more realistic the illusions would be. Even venerables and saints might fall for it. Hence, the illusionary cloud cat was an excellent support in battle. Moreover, since it could create all kinds of illusions, it was also very helpful for cultivators to comprehend treasured skills and cultivation methods. Of course, the illusionary cloud cat's realm had to be up to par. Wasn't it a joke to have a cauldron-cast illusionary cloud cat create illusions that even saints couldn't tell the difference? "Stop messing with me," the white cat grumbled. "All right, I'm done." Ling Han nodded, but he couldn't help himself. He threw a third ball. The white cat, all right, I'm really done." Ling Han sat back down. He had a sudden epiphany, but it was ruined in the blink of an eye. He naturally had to teach this cat a lesson. The white cat was still fuming with anger. It raised its head high, its face full of arrogance. Ling Han looked at the white cat. "You specialize in swindling people, don't you?" The white cat snorted. "So what? I tricked them with my skills. If you're so capable, go ahead." Ling Han couldn't help but laugh. "You're still acting so righteous? I'm warning you again. Don't tell anyone about me," the white cat said solemnly. "All right." Ling Han nodded. The white cat couldn't help but be suspicious. "So straightforward?" Ling Han smiled and said, "Whatever benefits you've obtained, you can just share some with me." "What?" The white cat stared at Ling Han. "I suddenly realized that you're even more shameless than me. You tricked them with your skills, but so did I," Ling Han laughed. "Tui, I just let those idiots use their contribution points to exchange for some cold plum wine to satisfy my craving." "It's not as bad as you think," the white cat said angrily. "All right, I'll keep it a secret for you." Ling Han observed the white cat's expression and felt that it was telling the truth. "Are you really that kind?" The white cat didn't dare to believe Ling Han so easily. "If I can be tricked by you just thinking about it, then I deserve it." Ling Han laughed. The white cat immediately bristled. "What do you mean? Are you looking down on me?" "I was just joking. Ling Han hurriedly comforted the cat demon. End of chapter. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.